Chapter 922. Deep in the night, two figures sneaked into the deepest part of the palace without anyone noticing. The palace had a special basement that was not open to outsiders, but it was not a problem for these two daring fellows. After exploring for a while, they found the entrance. However, a group of armed guards stood guard at the entrance, making it impossible for them to force their way in. They wanted to sneak in without anyone noticing. The two looked at each other and Enchanting said, "You go and lead them away." "Why me?" "Because I'm your senior. Respect the old and love the young. Didn't your kindergarten teacher teach you that?" Enchanting said with a laugh. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and rushed out in a flash. "What's that?" The guard only saw a blur in front of his eyes and did not see clearly what it was. He just subconsciously shouted, "You guys go over there and take a look." A person who looked like a leader sent out some of his subordinates. But he still stood guard and did not move. Enchanting was stunned. "Damn, why didn't you guys chase after them? Why did you guys stay behind?" The plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain had failed. Tang Zheng shook off his pursuers and appeared behind Enchanting, asking, "How is it? Why aren't you moving?" Enchanting pointed at the door and said, "Look for yourself." "How do I get in?" You're really smart. You didn't fall for it." Tang Zheng was surprised. The more cautious the other side was, the more important the thing behind the door was. "Actually, we can use illusions to blind their eyes and then sneak in without anyone noticing. But we have to open the door, then they will definitely notice. This is the most difficult part." Tang Zheng analyzed. Enchanting said helplessly, "We can't knock them out and directly charge in, and we can't sneak in without anyone noticing. So what do you think we should do?" "You still have the nerve to ask me. You were the one who brought this up." Tang Zheng was speechless. "Okay, then I'm going in." "Don't even think about taking the crystals later," Enchanting retorted. "Who said I don't want it? Of course I want it. You're the only one who's full, but the whole family isn't hungry. I have so many people around me, and everyone needs crystals." Tang Zheng wouldn't do it. "What a miser. Don't you know how to respect the old and love the young?" "Give me more," Enchanting muttered. "Hee, you're already so powerful at such an old age. You should leave this kind of improvement opportunity to us, the younger generation. Stop talking nonsense and think of a way." Tang Zheng stared at the group of guards. Just as he was at his wit's end, the door opened. Their pupils constricted as they looked at each other. Then, they stared at the door. A few people in white coats walked out. These people had solemn expressions and tightly knitted brows. "Why are there doctors here?" Enchanting asked curiously. Tang Zheng shook his head, "These are not doctors. Those who wear white coats are not necessarily doctors, just like those who ride white horses are not necessarily Tang Zheng. These are researchers. Look at that old man. I seem to have seen him in a popular science program before. He's a very awesome scientist." "Scientist? What are these scientists doing coming out from under the palace in the middle of the night?" Enchanting was confused. Tang Zheng was also confused, but when he saw the door open, he was overjoyed and said, "Don't worry about them. This is the best time for us to sneak in. Let's go." He quickly cast an illusion, which was equivalent to invisibility, and took the lead to rush towards the door. "Boy, wait for me." Enchanting followed suit. Almost at the moment the door closed, he rushed in with Tang Zheng. Bang! Behind them came the sound of the door closing. A feeling of isolation hit their hearts. The two subconsciously looked back and found that the door was very heavy. It was almost impossible to move it with just the strength of their hands. "Don't worry about the door. Let's go forward first," Enchanting said. Tang Zheng nodded and looked around. After confirming that there were no cameras, he was relieved and said in a low voice, "This is the most secret place, but there are no cameras." This means that His Majesty the King does not want the things here to be made public. He did not even leave behind a single image. Did you see those scientists just now? They were searched when they left. This is definitely not normal. Hee, this old king is quite cautious. Unfortunately, in front of me, it's useless to be cautious. However, you are right. It makes sense for him to be so cautious. After all, the crystal is too important. Tang Jing did not refute, but in his heart another thought emerged. Crystal is very important to cultivators, but for ordinary people, it is of little value. It is not worth such a tight protection. However, for the time being, he could not figure out the reason. He could only continue to move forward. The basement was very spacious. Even the entrance passage was like a main road. The ventilation was good, and there was not a trace of cold or damp air. The two carefully moved forward. Not long after, their eyes lit up as they came to a huge laboratory. This was a laboratory set up in the basement. It was empty. Tang Jing suddenly realized that those scientists must be working in this laboratory. But the key was why the laboratory was set up under the royal palace. Was it necessary to hide like this? He shook his head. He really could not figure it out. Tian Chanzi reluctantly said, "It seems that I have to admit that you are right. Those people are scientists, not doctors." Looking at the bottles and jars in the laboratory, as well as all kinds of cutting-edge instruments, Tang Jing analyzed, the experiments they are doing here must be top secret. Tian Chanzi did not care. "I don't care what experiments they are. I only want the crystal. Then let's split up and look. There are so many cabinets here. I don't know where the crystal is hidden." Tian Chanzi waved his hand and walked to the left. So Tang Jing walked to the right. Looking at the dazzling array of bottles and jars and instruments, Tang Jing's eyes were dark. He simply could not see what the research was. However, the most important thing was to find the crystal. He began to rummage through the cabinets. But after rummaging for a long time, he still could not find the crystal. When he used his energy to investigate, he could clearly feel that there was a huge energy source hidden in the basement. It was the same as the crystal. So, the crystal must be in this laboratory. Huh? Tang Jing's attention was suddenly attracted by a thick cable on the ground. The cable was connected to a wall in the laboratory. This cable was connected to a huge instrument. On the screen above, there was a ripple jumping, very much like a heartbeat monitor in a hospital. But the jumping curve was obviously much faster than a human's heartbeat. The rising and falling waves were continuous. Tang Jing had always been very curious about the research direction of this laboratory. When he saw the ripple on the screen, he had an idea. He turned around and walked along the cable. When he came to the wall, the cable penetrated from the ground, and in front of him was a huge iron door. What was behind the iron door? "Tang Jing, hurry up and find the crystal." "What are you doing there?" "Facing the wall to reflect on your mistakes." Tian Chanzi saw Tang Jing in a daze and kept urging him. "It's really strange. The crystal is clearly here. Why can't I find it?" Tang Jing moved and shouted, "Tian Chanzi, come here. I think there is a situation here." "What's the situation?" Tian Chanzi rushed over like a gust of wind. He also saw the iron door and said in surprise, "You think the crystal is behind the door?" Tang Jing shook his head and said he did not know. "Open the door and everything will be clear." Tian Chanzi could not wait. He pressed his hands on the iron door and pushed with all his strength. The iron door made a creaking sound, but it was not pushed open. "Hey, this is strange. I don't believe I can't push it open." Tian Chanzi stretched his body and angrily tried to push the iron door. "Haha." Tang Jing burst out laughing. Tian Chanzi turned around and looked at him. "What are you laughing at?" "Tian Chanzi, I'm laughing at how stupid you are." Tang Jing could not help but say. "You are the stupid one," Tian Chanzi said in a bad mood. Tang Jing shook his head and directly pressed a button next to the iron door. The iron door opened. Ah, so it was that simple? Tian Chanzi was stunned. Why didn't you say so earlier? Tang Zheng laughed and said with a shrug, I didn't have time to say it and you already used all your strength. Who can you blame? You brat, you are deliberately making fun of me. Tian Chanzi helplessly glared at him. Let's see what's inside first. Tang Zheng pointed inside and walked in. Tian Chanzi also hurriedly followed in. The space behind the iron door was not big, but there was an amber-like thing standing in front of them. A surge of energy hit them in the face. Tang Zheng could not help but take a deep breath. He felt refreshed, but his eyes were wide open as he looked at the scene in front of him. 2. Shocking. This was not amber, but a crystal as tall as a wall. The 2 crystals that the king gave them were not even worth mentioning. This was a treasure trove. Tian Chanzi also opened his eyes wide. After a long while, he laughed and scolded, Damn, why is the king so stingy? I am his daughter's master, and he only gave me a small one. It's like a drop of water in the ocean. Tian Chanzi could not help but extend his hand and press it on the crystal. Whoosh whoosh. Powerful energy gushed out from the crystal, forming a gust of wind on Tian Chanzi's arm. His expression became extremely strange. Back then, when he was in the prehistoric heavenly tomb, he was lucky enough to reach the 9th stage of yuanying. Later on, he used the crystal to consolidate his cultivation, but when he wanted to go further, he did not succeed in entering the semi-god realm. But at this moment, after absorbing this energy, he felt that every pore of his was filled with innate qi. The innate qi surged, and waves of thunder came out from his body. The air around his body surged, creating circles of ripples. Tian Chanzi was wild with joy, and laughed, My cultivation is about to break through the semi-god realm, I'm finally going to succeed. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged and circulated his energy to digest this huge amount of energy, and prepare for the upcoming breakthrough. Tang Zheng was also happy for him. This way, he would have the help of 2 experts of the semi-god realm. He subconsciously raised his head to look at the cause of all this, but suddenly discovered that the crystal had actually changed. Veins that looked like blood vessels appeared on the crystal. Chapter 923. The veins on the crystal were very clear and were similar to blood vessels. There was a liquid slowly flowing inside. What is this? Tang Zheng was shocked, but he found that the crystal was changing more and more. Soon, it became completely transparent. There's something inside the crystal. Tang Zheng's eyes widened as he saw an unknown creature appear inside the crystal. He found that the cables were forked into strands and attached to the crystal. Could the wavy lines on the monitor be the heartbeat of this unknown creature? It was alive. He suppressed his violently beating heart and stared at it. He had never seen this creature before and he was sure that it was not a creature of this world. It was about the same size as an adult, but it was a 4-legged reptile. It had a very long tail that was like a sharp hook. The strangest thing was that its eyes were always open and reflected Tang Zheng's figure. Tang Zheng's heart trembled as he stared at those eyes. It was as if his soul was about to be sucked into them. What are you standing there for? Tian Chanzi's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Tang Zheng's thoughts were interrupted. He turned his head to Tian Chanzi and said, Tian Chanzi, quickly look at the East Delta 3, West, do you know what this is? What are you talking about? Let me tell you a piece of good news. You'll be jealous to death. I've already broken through to the deity transformation realm. If I meet the 100 Faces Star Sovereign in the future, I won't be completely helpless. Tian Chanzi said excitedly. Tang Zheng acted as if he didn't hear him and anxiously urged, Don't talk about yourself. Look inside the crystal, there's an unknown creature. What unknown creature? You stinking brat, even if you don't want to congratulate me, you don't have to find such an excuse to avoid me. Tian Chanzi's voice was a bit unhappy. What did you say? You didn't see the unknown creature? Tang Zheng was shocked and quickly turned his head. Ah! He couldn't help but cry out, Where's that thing? How come it's gone? It was clearly inside the crystal just now, and there were even vein-like arteries in the crystal. Tang Zheng, are you dazzled by the surprise? Tian Chanzi asked. Tang Zheng firmly shook his head. I'm absolutely not seeing things. Just now, the crystal became transparent, and I saw an unknown creature inside. Seeing that Tang Zheng was so agitated and determined, Tian Chanzi frowned suspiciously. Was that really the case? He stared at the crystal. The crystal was not transparent, and it was no different from what he had seen before. Did you find any clues? Tang Zheng hurriedly asked. Tian Chanzi shook his head as he found nothing. There's something strange about this crystal. Look at the cables connected to it. I suspect that they're used to detect the unknown creature inside the crystal. Moreover, there's a heartbeat, which means that it's a living creature. But I don't know why it was sealed in this crystal. Moreover, I suspect that it's not a creature from our world. Tang Zheng analyzed in an orderly manner. Crystal is rare. It said that it's an object from the outside world, and the old king also told you that this crystal was brought by a meteorite from outer space. This large crystal must be an object from outer space. If there's really something sealed in it, it must be an object from outer space. Tian Chanzi nodded, agreeing with Tang Zheng's statement. Human exploration of outer space was very limited. According to scientific theory, the creature sealed in this crystal was an alien creature. Human beings had been looking for evidence of the existence of alien creatures, but they didn't expect that the Swedish royal family would find it first. This also explained why the laboratory was built under the royal palace and was under such strict protection. However, this was only a scientific point of view. For Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi, they knew about the big world and the small world. The so-called alien creature was a creature from another big world or small world. This wasn't impossible. After all, the existence of the outland and the world of ghosts had proven this point. Which world do you think it came from? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes. There are so many big worlds and small worlds. How could I know? However, if we want to find out what it is, it's easy to get it out. I don't think it's that easy. Tang Zheng muttered, if it's really that easy, those scientists would have already gotten it out for research. Why keep it in the crystal? Hee, what's difficult for those scientists? Can it be difficult for me, Tian Chanzi? Tian Chanzi smiled proudly and didn't take it seriously. He directly slapped the crystal. The crystal only shook a few times, but it didn't crack as he expected. Huh? Tian Chanzi was surprised. He was very clear that the strength of his palm was enough to break the stone. This crystal was actually so strong. Huh, Tian Chanzi, now you know that it's too early to boast. Tang Zheng laughed. Tian Chanzi's cheeks were red with anger. He said bitterly, I don't believe that I can't handle this thing. Tian Chanzi didn't admit defeat. He slapped down again. This time, he used all his strength, but the crystal was still unbreakable. But what was unexpected was that the crystal changed. The blood vessel-like veins appeared again. Tian Chanzi subconsciously stopped and stared at the veins. Although Tang Zheng had seen it once, it was still difficult to hide the shock in his heart when he saw it again. After a while, the crystal became transparent. The unknown creature was vividly displayed in front of him. Heaven Monk's mouth was already wide open as he looked at this thing in disbelief. Especially that pair of eyes, it was firmly attracting people. What kind of monster is this? Tian Chanzi shook his head and exclaimed in surprise. Tang Zheng looked deeply at the unknown creature. He silently asked the inner demons and Qi Yu in his heart. Unfortunately, the two of them didn't know its origin. Although they were powerhouses from ancient times, they were still powerhouses of this world. They didn't know much about other worlds. After all, they hadn't even explored the sky beyond heaven, let alone other worlds. Seeing Tian Chanzi looking at him, Tang Zheng helplessly shrugged and said, I can't answer you. Now you know that this crystal isn't that easy to split open, right? I'm afraid the king had to go through a lot of trouble to get those two crystals. Since they were able to get a little, then we can get a lot more. Tianqianzi said, unwilling to give up. Tang Zheng looked at the unknown creature and shook his head. No, I don't think we need to cut it open. Since it's a whole, then it has its own reason to exist. Moreover, since you just proved that you can absorb the energy in the crystal, then why do we need to cut it open? If we don't cut it open, then how will we divide the crystal and cultivate? Tianqianzi asked suspiciously. Tang Jing smiled faintly. Who said that we can't cultivate if we don't split it? This crystal is dead, but we people are alive. As long as we gather everyone in front of the crystal and absorb the crystal's energy while cultivating, won't the problem be solved? Don't you cultivators have some kind of holy lands? We can also make our own holy lands. Tianqianzi's eyes lit up and he praised, you little brat, your brain is really clever. This method is feasible, but who do we put the crystal with? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said generously, how about we put it with you? Are you really willing? With this, you can quickly improve your cultivation. Tianqianzi looked at Tang Zheng in surprise. What's there to be reluctant about? You've helped me so much. Moreover, the higher your cultivation, won't I also benefit from it? Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't seem to be duplicitous, Tianqianzi praised and said, hey, it's really not a waste of my kindness to you. But you can rest assured that I, Tianqianzi, am also an open and above-board person. After we go back, we'll find a place to put this crystal, and then everyone can absorb the energy together to cultivate. Tang Zheng himself had Qi Yu's heart blood, so he didn't care much. Suddenly he thought of a problem and said, when the energy in the crystal is absorbed, the crystal will melt like ice. Finally, when we finish absorbing the crystal's energy, the crystal will completely melt, then wouldn't this thing be free? Hey, what you said is actually a problem. But, I don't think it's that powerful. We have so many people, why should we be afraid of it? Tianqianzi didn't care, he didn't put it in his eyes at all. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. This creature from another world couldn't be careless, but for the time being he didn't have a better way. He could only improve his cultivation. Even if there was a problem in the future, he would have a stronger strength to deal with it. While the two of them were talking, the crystal returned to its original appearance, and the unknown creature disappeared without a trace. Tianqianzi didn't hold back. With a wave of his hand, he wanted to put the crystal into his summer bag. Hey, strange, why isn't there any reaction? Tianqianzi's eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost. Why isn't there any reaction? Tang Zheng was also very surprised. Tianqianzi stared at the crystal, somewhat anxiously said, it's really against me today, I don't believe it. Tianqianzi held his breath, focused his mind, and cast a spell, trying to put the crystal into his summer bag. But the crystal still didn't have any reaction. The summer bag absorbed all things, and this had never happened before. It was too strange. Tianqianzi scratched his head in distress and said, could it be that the level of my summer bag is too low? His summer bag was an earth-grade magic treasure, and its divine ability was already very extraordinary. It could even take in a heaven-grade magic treasure, but it couldn't deal with this crystal. Tianqianzi was very angry. This crystal was specifically against him. He used all his skills and sweated, but there was no reaction. He was about to go crazy. Damn crystal, why is my summer bag not working? Are you trying to anger me to death? Tianqianzi fiercely kicked the crystal a few times and roared angrily. This was like seeing a delicious meal, but there was no way to eat it. This feeling was really unpleasant. Looking at his helpless appearance, Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. Tianqianzi, why are you so angry with the crystal? Let's think of a way. We can't just not take it, right? Chapter 924. Looking at his suspicious eyes, Tang Zheng's heart moved, and he said, you can't, but that doesn't mean I can't. Don't brag too much. Let's try it and we'll know. Tang Zheng walked over, casting a spell, and the summer world on his wrist sparkled. Tianqianzi was suddenly shocked, patting his head as he suddenly realized, how could I forget about your summer world, Summer World is a heaven-grade magic treasure, 1 grade higher than my summer bag, maybe. He blushed a little. Tang Zheng's mind was completely focused, and with a so, the crystal disappeared. He immediately saw the crystal in Summer World. Huh, you really can. Tang Zheng was very happy. Tian Chanzi shook his head, depressed. Is there any justice? My cultivation is so much higher than his, but he still beat me. Looking at his depressed appearance, Tang Zheng patted him on the shoulder and said, Tian Chanzi, don't be discouraged. Can't you have a bit of the demeanor of a senior? You keep showing off, isn't it just a heaven-grade storage magic treasure? It won't be long, I will also upgrade my summer bag to a heaven-grade magic treasure. Tian Chanzi said faintly, looking like a bullied little wife. Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. AI, you got lucky again. This crystal is in your summer world. You can absorb as much energy as you want. Your cultivation will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. Tian Chanzi shook his head, and said enviously. Anyway, the outside door is closed, we can't go out, we have to wait for those scientists to come in tomorrow, then we can leave without anyone knowing. There are still a few hours, I'll take out the crystal, we can both absorb it to improve our cultivation. Tang Zheng said generously. Your spirit is commendable, you didn't eat it alone. Tian Chanzi praised, but, I just broke through, I still need to consolidate, I don't need to rush to absorb the energy. Oh, then I won't be polite, you can guard me. You little brat, you're not polite. Tian Chanzi laughed and scolded, good, you're now a 9th-grade golden core, I want to see if you can break through to the Yuanying realm in one go. Don't look down on me, if you can, why can't I? Tang Zheng was full of confidence. Then I'll wait and see. Tang Zheng's heart sank, the crystal was in Summer World, even if he didn't touch it, he would still be able to absorb the energy inside. As soon as he thought of this, a torrential surge of energy gathered in his body like a great river. This energy's chi, its energy's energy, chi's energy was chi's chi, ssss, T, S's cheese. At the same time, he also found that once he absorbed the energy, the crystal would become transparent, and the unknown creature inside would stand lifelike in front of him. He didn't care, his mind was focused on cultivation, but he didn't notice the two deep and mysterious eyes rolling. Hey, Chiyu, you're really lucky, young man, with this crystal, you don't need to keep absorbing your blood, you can preserve your strength. The inner demons suddenly said. Chiyu was shocked, and angrily retorted, inner demons, what nonsense are you talking about? He was afraid that Tang Zheng would continue to have ideas about the blood. The inner demons didn't intend to let him go, and continued, I'm not talking nonsense, if your blood is fine, then it's possible for you to occupy the young man's body in the future, right? You're trying to drive a wedge between us, if you let me escape, I'll kill you at all costs. Chiyu angrily shouted. Do you dare? If you kill me, I'll occupy your body, heh, this seems to be a good deal. You didn't dare to do this in the past, after so many years, could it be that your courage has grown? I don't think so. The inner demon's voice was full of provocation, making Chiyu furious, but there was nothing he could do. Tang Zheng heard these words, of course, he understood the inner demon's intentions, and also understood Chiyu's thoughts. Although he had the crystal, he wouldn't give up on absorbing the blood. After all, this could weaken Chiyu's strength, but he also had to be careful of the inner demon's strength. If he could find a way to weaken the inner demons, then it would be perfect, weakening them together, they wouldn't be able to jump around. One day, he could completely eliminate these two hidden dangers. Tang Zheng's thoughts moved, and he quickly focused his mind, concentrating on cultivating. The Jindan was getting bigger and bigger, becoming the size of a fist, and the Jindan was turning from solid to liquid little by little. He wasn't surprised, as he had already asked Tian Chanzi about this process, and understood that this was the transformation of the Jindan. After a while, the Jindan finally completely melted, turning into a liquid, just like melted liquid gold. All of this was an autonomous process, but the next step had to be controlled by Tang Zheng, as this was related to the strength of the condensed yuanying. He used his mind to control this mass of liquid, and continued to absorb the true qi for the liquid to shape. The liquid was stretched little by little, condensing into a human brain, but the face of this brain was still very blurry, and the face couldn't be seen clearly. At the same time, the torso also condensed, and the limbs began to spread outwards little by little. Time passed little by little, and after a long time, the initial human shape was finally successful. Tang Zheng wasn't too happy, because this was only the first step of the long journey, and there was still a lot of work to be done. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked Tian Chanzi to protect him. If this process was interrupted, the Yuanying would collapse, and there would be no hope for advancement. In the worst case, the Jin Dan would be destroyed, and he would die immediately. For a practitioner, this was a more important step than condensing the Jin Dan, and he had to be more careful. The next step was more delicate work. He began to control the true qi to attack the various parts of the Yuanying, gradually making each part no different from a real person, and even the lines on the palm appeared. This was a delicate sculpting process, just like sculpting a puppet, except that he was sculpting Yuanying. Gradually, the outline of the face became clear, and it turned out to be a miniature version of Tang Zheng. Yes, Yuanying was a miniature version of a practitioner. Once the Yuanying was mastered, one would have all kinds of supernatural powers in the future. Phew! It was a success. Tang Zheng lightly panted, his brain tense, and he was in a state of high tension. Even his vest was soaked. A Yuanying identical to Tang Zheng appeared. However, it was only the appearance that was the same, but the inside of the body was different. His future work was to transform the Yuanying into a Yuanying that was identical to himself, and this was the entire cultivation content of the Yuanying realm. When the Yuanying was transformed into a Yuanying that was identical to himself, he would successfully cross the Yuanying realm and reach the soul formation realm. The soul formation realm was to transform the Yuanying into something other than its appearance, and to give it intelligence. Yuanying was equivalent to a new life, and it was connected to the mind of the practitioner. When the soul formation realm ended, and the practitioner entered the Mahayana realm, the Yuanying would be able to leave the body of the practitioner and roam the world. This was equivalent to a real clone, an extension of the mind, and it was very powerful. Back then, the 100 Faces Star Lord had created many clones. They seemed real, but in fact, they were just appearances. Each clone could not be compared to the real body, and could not reach the strength of the real body. However, Yuanying was different. The Yuanying could be the same strength as the real body. When the Yuanying cultivated, the real body could also enjoy the increase in power. This was why when two people cultivated together, it would naturally be twice the result with half the effort. Of course, the further one cultivated, the more difficult it would be. Without the help of the Yuanying, it would be difficult to cultivate in the Mahayana realm. There's still a long way to go. Tang Zheng could not help but sigh to himself. However, looking at himself that was identical to himself, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The strength of the Yuanying was related to the carving skills of the cultivator. Tang Zheng cultivated the flying immortals from heaven, which was very helpful in controlling his true qi, so he could control his true qi to do such fine work. If a carver were to do this, I'm afraid it would be better. Tang Zheng was whimsical. However, as soon as this thought appeared, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed in his mind, and he was stunned. The ancient clear heaven scroll, which had been silent, had a reaction. The ancient clear heaven scroll was a set of vital cultivation techniques that led him on the path of cultivation. It was also the foundation of his cultivation. Ever since he started cultivating it, there was nothing too unusual about the ancient clear heaven scroll. Nevertheless, when this thought flashed through his mind, the ancient clear heaven scroll underwent a huge change. The words on the ancient scroll floated up and combined with each other to form another set of words. What's this? Tang Zheng was really shocked. He did not miss a single word and read the text very carefully. He could not calm down. This was because the text was a set of methods to sculpt the Yuanying. Moreover, there was a set of carving knife techniques that was so superb that he was almost stunned. Although he was not a carving master, he could tell that this set of knife techniques had the ability to transform something rotten into something magical. He was just envious of a carving master, and now this superb carving knife technique appeared. He wondered why he was so lucky. The ancient clear heaven scroll has never changed before. Could it be that it will only change after I reach the Yuaning realm? He was a smart person. After carefully thinking about it, he gradually understood. So it turns out that the ancient clear heaven scroll only exerts its power at the back. Only when my cultivation reaches the nascent soul stage will it gradually reveal its mystical aspects. No wonder Heaven Monk and the demon clan fought to the death for it. If he told this news to Tian Chanzi, who knew what he would think? Tang Jing mischievously thought. He suppressed the messy thoughts in his mind. Because the promotion process was not over, he had to guide the true Qi to enter the Yuaning realm. Only when the true Qi entered the Yuaning realm could he truly step into the Yuaning realm. The true Qi entered the Yuaning realm. The Yuaning realm was formed by the condensation of the golden core, so it was naturally golden. Without any warning, a ball of true fire in the brain's sea of consciousness quickly entered the dantian along the meridians. The purple true fire and true Qi merged into one and entered the Yuaning realm. Chapter 925. The golden light around the Yuaning gradually faded, and a purple light began to spread from the inside out. Tang Zheng's lips curled into a smile. His dantian had gradually transformed into a purple palace, and this purple color was a sign of the transformation. Now that his purple palace had reached the large success stage, the Yuaning no longer had a trace of gold, and was now a light purple color. In the future, the higher his cultivation, the deeper the purple color of the Yuaning would become. Looking at the purple light emitting from the inside out of the Yuaning, Tang Zheng smiled with satisfaction. It was a success. He had successfully advanced to the first grade Yuaning realm. Hey, you little brat, you really succeeded. First grade Yuaning realm, this crystal's energy is truly powerful. Tian Chanzi exclaimed in admiration. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said, "That's because my innate talent is extraordinary. Didn't you just say that it was impossible for me to succeed?" Cough cough. Tian Chanzi awkwardly coughed and said with a guilty conscience, "Horses can make mistakes, and people can make mistakes. I also have times when I make mistakes. Just you wait, there will be a day when I surpass you." Tang Zheng was full of confidence. Tian Chanzi's face stiffened and said with a guilty conscience, "Don't bite off more than you can chew." Although he said that, with Tang Zheng's terrifying cultivation speed, that day really wouldn't be too far away. Tian Chanzi felt an unprecedented pressure. Tang Zheng chuckled and didn't continue to discourage Tian Chanzi. He said, "It's already morning, the scientists will be back soon. Then let's wait and make preparations. Hee, I really want to see their expressions when they discover that the crystal disappeared." Tian Chanzi said with a mischievous smile. "Don't play pranks, those people will definitely be as anxious as ants on a hot pan. His Majesty the King will definitely be furious. Do you think they will suspect us?" Tang Zheng asked thoughtfully. Tian Chanzi said without thinking, "So what if they suspect us? What can he do to us? I am his daughter's master. Since they have no use for the crystals they left behind, wouldn't it be good to give them to their master and make the best use of them?" "Alright, you're very reasonable." The two of them quickly came to the door. Not long after, they saw the door slowly open. The two of them quickly used illusion to become invisible. They quickly passed through the scientists and disappeared without a trace. The two of them secretly returned to their respective rooms. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Mu Hongyan stood outside the door, her face glowing. Last night, she slept a little late because she was both looking forward to it and was afraid. She thought that Tang Zheng would sneak into her room in the middle of the night. But she didn't expect that this guy would actually become obedient, which was really out of her expectations. But even so, he was nourished during the day, and he was able to truly cultivate the wondrous intent art. His mental state was unprecedentedly good. Big Sister Mu, your cultivation has risen really quickly. You've already reached the 6th grade of foundation establishment. Tang Zheng was surprised. He helped Mu Hongyan change her muscles and cleanse her marrow, but it didn't really increase her cultivation. Instead, she had to rely on her own cultivation to fully understand the mysteries of the wondrous intent art and obtain the corresponding cultivation. There was a certain difference between muscle and marrow transformation and wisdom infusion. Wisdom infusion was to directly and forcibly increase a person's cultivation. If the foundation wasn't solid, then it would be very harmful to one's future cultivation. In addition, using wisdom infusion required an extremely high cultivation, but muscle and marrow transformation had a slightly lower cultivation requirement. It only improved a person's physique and increased their cultivation speed. This had a drawback. It was easy to cultivate in the beginning, even easier than many geniuses, but the further one went, the more difficult it would be. Mu Hongyan was the best proof. Her talent was average, but she actually broke through 6 levels in one night. This was enough to make many geniuses feel ashamed of their inferiority. Even if it was Tang Zheng, he was completely outclassed. But in the future, her cultivation would be more difficult than Tang Zheng's. But Tang Zheng was confident that when his cultivation increased in the future, he would be able to find a way to solve this problem. Mu Hongyan happily said, "This is all thanks to you. I never thought that I would have a day like this. This is what you deserve." Big Sister Mu still has to work hard and strive to reach a higher cultivation. I will find a magic weapon for you. Magic weapon, really? Mu Hongyan's eyes lit up, and then she looked at him with a strange expression. The other people's magic weapons were also given by you, right? Could it be that only after becoming your woman can I have a magic weapon? Tang Zheng almost choked on his own saliva. He never expected that she would ask such a tricky question. He resentfully said, "How could that be? In the past, I always thought that you were honest, but now I know that I was wrong. I saw that Shishir, Ding Dang, and Qingmei all have magic weapons that you gave them. Could it be that they are all your women?" "Oh, that's not right. There is also Wu. She is not a cultivator, so she doesn't have a magic weapon. But I heard that you taught her a set of fire underworld divine palm." "Stop." Tang Zheng quickly surrendered. This woman's intuition was too terrifying. She actually guessed everything correctly. Even Lu Qingmei was able to guess it, which he did not expect. "What, did I say something wrong?" Mu Hongyan asked with a smile that was not a smile. Tang Zheng awkwardly said, "Big Sister Mu, don't expose my shortcomings." Mu Hongyan raised her eyebrows and said, "Then let's see if you still dare to bully me in the future." "Big Sister Mu, your words wrongly accuse me. I have never bullied you." Tang Zheng complained. "Then yesterday you treated me like that." Mu Hongyan's eyes seemed to be rippling with water. Tang Zheng's heart moved. He could not help but grab her hand and said, "That was not bullying." Mu Hongyan's breathing became hurried. She fiercely glared at him and said, "Do you want to die? You dare to mess around in front of the gate? You too woke up so early." And walked over from behind. Mu Hongyan acted as if she had been electrocuted. She quickly retracted her hand and said with a guilty conscience, "I came to find him to discuss work." "You two are so serious. Discussing work so early." And did not pay attention to Mu Hongyan's expression. Her eyes were shining as she stared at Tang Zheng and asked, "Let's go to a new place to play today." "You're still playing? Yesterday you almost lost your life. Don't I have you? You are my knight. No one can even think of harming me." And firmly said, "I'm not that powerful. It's better to be safe than sorry. His Majesty will definitely not let you out. Don't look at me like that. I won't sneak out with you again." Tang Zheng mercilessly refused. And pouted and said unhappily, "Why is there no sentiment at all? Annoying. Sister Mu, let's talk about business. Today we will continue to receive the corresponding industries. Although there are people stirring up trouble, we cannot panic." Tang Zheng did not pay attention to An and said directly to Mu Hongyan. Mu Hongyan looked deeply at him and said, "I can take care of these things by myself." "No, this time the enemy is in the dark and we are in the light. I'm worried that they won't play by the rules and will harm you. Tang Zheng insisted. Is it that exaggerated? Isn't this just a business operation? Mu Hongyan disagreed. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. It's not as simple as you think. He suspected that the real culprit who tried to assassinate and yesterday was related to the person who intercepted the goods. Because these two matters were too strange. However, this was only a guess and there was no way to prove it. Mu Hongyan saw that he was so insistent and could not say anything more. She had no choice but to nod in agreement. Then take me with you. And begged. Will His Majesty allow it? Moreover, haven't you always been clamoring for Tian Chanzi to give you pointers in your cultivation? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In the future, if he slips away again, you won't be able to find him even if you want to. Tang Zheng said. He and Tian Chanzi took the crystal. If and when to ask Tian Chanzi for advice at this time, he would definitely give her pointers without reservation. It was a kind of compensation. Really? Although Anne was a bit unhappy, she was still very interested in cultivation. Her attention was immediately diverted. Of course, if he doesn't give you pointers with all his heart, I will find him and help you vent your anger. Okay, I'll go now. And happily left. Mu Hongyan looked meaningfully at Tang Zheng. Her lips curled into a smile and said, You really know how to coax girls. I'm doing this for her own good. How is this coaxing? I don't know how many women will fall into this big net you weave. Mu Hongyan sighed. Tang Zheng deliberately pretended not to hear and said, Let's go take care of business. Mu Hongyan did not pursue the matter and let him go for the time being. The two of them went to find Bruce. He was the most knowledgeable about business matters, so naturally he was there. Bruce was standing in front of the king's door. His face was deathly pale. From behind the door came the king's angry voice. Tang Zheng's heart moved. The king must know about the disappearance of the crystal. But he still asked, Bruce, what happened? Bruce's face tightened as he said, Nothing. The matter of the crystal was top secret. How could he tell Tang Zheng? Oh, that's good. Today we still have to go out. I wonder if it's convenient for you. Bruce hesitated for a moment and said, I'll go report to His Majesty and then make a decision. Okay. Bruce pushed open the door and walked in. Tang Zheng vaguely saw several people in white coats. There were also several guards guarding the laboratory. What happened? Mu Hongyan curiously asked. Tang Zheng shook his head. He pretended to be at a loss and said, I don't know. His Majesty the King has always been gentle and refined. He is very gentlemanly. I've never seen him so angry. Mu Hongyan curiously said. Tang Zheng faintly smiled. Of course the king would be angry. The crystal went missing under the palace's layers of protection. This was indeed a serious matter. If this could happen, then wouldn't it mean that he could be killed in his sleep without anyone knowing? The so-called gentlemanly demeanor would naturally disappear under this kind of fatal threat. The king's face flushed red. The bridge of his nose was bright red. He angrily roared, If you don't know what happened, then how did you protect it? Can something disappear for no reason? Everyone trembled in fear. The guards guiltily explained, Your Majesty. We guarded it closely. If someone really stole the crystal, it would be impossible for them to escape our eyes. That is the truth. Did I wrongly accuse you? The king angrily asked. The guards all lowered their heads. This was something that could not be explained by science. Chapter 926. After listening to Bruce's words, the king's anger subsided a little and he said, Then you go. Remember, if someone is causing trouble, it must not be simple. Find out who is behind this. Yes, your subordinate understands. Bruce took the order and left. The king looked at Tang Zheng from a distance through the crack in the door and muttered to himself, There are several royal families in other countries who have long known that I have crystals, and they have been coveting this thing for a long time. Could it be that they are behind this? But their methods are too clever. They did not leave any traces, which is not their style. Your Majesty, this is simply a godlike method. We really can't figure out where we lost. The guard said with annoyance. The king snorted heavily. Since you don't know where we lost, then investigate and find out the reason. Yes. The guard retreated as if he had been pardoned, leaving only a few scientists in white coats. The king sat back heavily in his chair and said, "Has your research made no progress?" The scientists in white coats lowered their heads in shame. Your Majesty, we have tried our best. We have tried many methods, even using lasers, but there was no way to open the crystals. We tried every means to get 2 of them, and we have already given them to your Majesty. The king subconsciously recalled the scene when Tang Jiao got the crystals. There was no doubt that crystals were very important to cultivators. These crystals were also very important to the royal family. If there was a way to collect the energy in the crystals, then the level of technology would definitely be a qualitative leap. However, all of this did not succeed. Why can cultivators absorb the energy in the crystals? I should have asked and to try it earlier. He regretted it. In fact, he invited Tian Chanzi to come to Sweden because he had a lot of selfish motives. Ever since he knew that Tang Zheng got rid of Nicholas and pulled down the sword of Damocles that had been hanging over their heads for hundreds of years, the king was very fond of the means of cultivators. And was too weak to explain the essence of cultivators, so he wanted to use Tian Chanzi's means to turn the elites of the Swedish royal family into cultivators. In this way, the country would definitely rise rapidly, and the royal families of European countries would not be his opponents. In the future, it would be easy to fight against the Rothschild family. This was killing many birds with one stone. However, before he could express his intentions to the Heaven Monk, a series of unimaginable events happened one after another, causing him to be unable to take it all in. He actually did not have the time to talk to the Heaven Monk alone. Then, is there any news about the unknown creature in the crystal? The king asked, unwilling to give up. The white coats all shook their heads. We've looked through all the literature, but we've never seen such a creature. This is an extraterrestrial creature. We don't have any relevant information. The king was getting angrier and angrier. He waved his hand to dismiss the crowd and summoned Bezer. Bezer walked over with large strides, the smell of iron and blood coming from his body. The king frowned and asked, "Do you have any leads on the mole?" "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. I have found out who the mole is." After torture and interrogation, he finally confessed. They are indeed not from the Rothschild family, but as for who is supporting them, his rank is too low to know. Humph. Huaxia has an old saying that one will not cry until they see the coffin. He did not tell the complete truth, the king said seriously. Your Majesty is wise, but this person is already dead. He knew that there was no hope for him to live, so he hurriedly explained some things and committed suicide, Bezer said regretfully. Damn, he actually committed suicide. The king was very angry. His royal guards were infiltrated by the enemy. Thinking about it made his back shiver. If he was suddenly shot, he would die without a doubt. Then, is there any news about the escaped enemy? The king asked. There is no news for now. Bezer saw that the king's face was not good, so he quickly added, but we have a clue. The microbombs implanted in the brain are very rare, and there is only one seller on the international weapons black market. I have sent people to investigate, and there will be news soon. The king's face finally turned slightly better, and he urged, find the mastermind behind the scenes as soon as possible. Tang Zheng, Mu Hongyan, Bruce and a driver drove to the destination. The streets on both sides of the road quickly passed by, and a weak wind blew. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's ears slightly trembled, and he shouted, hide! Pung! He kicked open the car door, carried Mu Hongyan, and jumped out of the speeding car. Boom! With a loud bang, the car exploded and turned into a ball of flames. Tang Zheng tightly held Mu Hongyan and asked, Sister Mu Hongyan, how are you? I'm fine. Mu Hongyan's heart tightened, and she was scared. If she did not have Tang Zheng with her today, she would not have been able to escape this disaster. Looking at the burning wreckage of the car, she could imagine what would have been waiting for her. On the other side, Bruce's face was bruised and swollen, and he struggled to get up from the ground. At the critical moment, he risked his life and finally jumped out of the car. He was ruthlessly thrown to the ground, and his old bones almost fell apart. But the driver was not so lucky, and he was buried in the explosion with the car. Tang Zheng was furious. This was a woman who wanted to kill him, and no matter who it was, he would not let them go. He raised his eyes and looked around, vigilant of the rockets or bullets that could fly at any time. However, after waiting for a long time, there was nothing, only the screams of passers-by, and the sound of sirens could be heard in the distance. Damn it, they are so smart, they ran away when they couldn't hit the target. Tang Zheng fiercely stamped his foot, and a large piece of the flagstone on the ground shattered. Bruce ran over in a panic and said, "What should we do now?" "Find the mastermind behind this, and let them pay a painful price." Tang Zheng clenched his fists and said while gnashing his teeth. Bruce's heart trembled. He had never seen Tang Zheng so angry, and he knew that things were going to be bad. Even Nicholas had fallen into his hands. Who was the one who didn't have eyes and actually dared to provoke him? Who has the best intelligence in Europe? Tang Zheng was a foreign monk, and he was ready to find the local snake to find out. There are many countries in Europe, and each country has its own intelligence system. We also have. Before he finished, he was rudely interrupted by Tang Zheng, "But your intelligence system is obviously useless. This kind of violent attack has happened in your country time and time again, and you have no clue at all." Facing Tang Zheng's accusation, Bruce was speechless. Looking at his eyes that were about to spit fire, Bruce hesitated and said, "Actually, the Rothschild family is the most well-informed." Alex's family? Yes, they have existed in Europe for centuries. Moreover, they have spanned across the entire continent. This is something that a single country cannot compare to. Their intelligence system was established a few centuries ago. Now, it has become an indescribably huge net. Even the slightest movement of grass in the wind cannot escape their eyes. Bruce said somewhat bitterly. As a member of the royal family, he had to admit that an outsider's intelligence system was more perfect than their country's. This was a slap to his own face. Tang Zheng secretly nodded. Bruce was right. It seemed that he had to meet the Rothschild family. "Let's go to Alex's castle." Tang Zheng pulled Mu Hongyan and turned around to leave. Bruce was extremely anxious and quickly caught up. "Young Master Tang, young Master Alex has a grudge against you. If you go and beg him, he may not agree." Tang Zheng smiled coldly. "Who said I'm going to beg him?" Bruce was suddenly startled and exclaimed, You want to use force? That depends on whether he cooperates or not." Tang Zheng said meaningfully. Bruce pulled a long face and lamented in his heart, "This is getting bigger and bigger. If the Rothschild family is really involved, then the royal family will be attacked from both sides. Just thinking about it makes him tremble with fear." Tang Zheng pulled Mu Hongyan and walked very quickly. Not long after, Bruce was left behind without a trace. The two arrived in front of the castle. The door was tightly shut. Mu Hongyan looked at the classical and magnificent castle and said, "If I had a castle like this, I would be satisfied." "I'll give you a ride." Tang Zheng said. "You don't have a castle?" Mu Hongyan laughed involuntarily. "I don't, but the Rockefeller family's property definitely has a castle." Mu Hongyan recalled the information she had read. It was indeed so. She excitedly nodded, "Good. But this castle is very good." "You like this castle? Then let's buy it. This belongs to Alex's family. His family doesn't lack money. Why would they sell it?" Mu Hongyan shook her head and said in disbelief. Seeing that she really liked this castle, Tang Zheng's heart moved. He domineeringly said, "My woman, even if she likes the stars in the sky, I will find a way to pluck them and give them to her. It's just a castle, what's impossible about it? Mu Hongyan's eyes lit up. At this moment, she felt that no words of love in the world were better than these words. Although she was past the age of dreaming, these words inadvertently hit the softest part of her heart. She held on to Tang Zhang's hand even tighter. No wonder so many women are like moths to a flame. It's because your flame is too hot. Mu Hongyan sincerely said. Creak. A small window next to the door suddenly opened. A person appeared and asked the two who they were looking for. Alex. When the other side heard this name, his expression turned cold. He asked, "Do you two have an appointment?" "No. Sorry, without an appointment, our young master will not receive guests." Pretentious. Tang Zheng lightly said these two words. With a tap of his foot, he soared into the air and lightly took a step in the air. Peng peng. He and Mu Hongyan landed in the courtyard. The guards at the gate were dumbstruck. They watched the two of them stride into the castle, not knowing what to do. A group of people suddenly rushed out of the castle. They looked at the two of them with vigilance and loudly shouted for them to stop. The two of them turned a deaf ear to them and continued forward. Immediately, these people rushed towards the two of them. Their attacks were layered and had a tacit understanding. However, their strength could not compare to Tang Zhang's. They were like ants trying to shake a big tree. They were all sent flying in all directions. The battle had ended before it even started. This scene was clearly seen by Alex, who was standing at the window on the second floor. Chapter 927. Alex had already inquired about the situation when Princess Anne was attacked yesterday. When he found out about Tang Zheng's heroic actions, he was still a little indignant, thinking that those mercenaries were too weak, so he took advantage of them. He wished that he was the one accompanying Anne at that time, so that the role of the hero saving the beauty would fall on his head. But at this moment, seeing Tang Zheng's skill, his heart couldn't help but beat wildly. This skill was almost on par with the Holy Knight at home. No, how can he be compared to the Holy Knight? He hurriedly shook his head, denying this absurd idea. But he didn't know that Tang Zheng had only displayed a portion of his strength to deal with his guards. Tang Zheng felt something and looked up, coincidentally meeting Alex's eyes. Alex subconsciously took a step back. This was because Tang Zheng's eyes were so sharp that even though they were separated by a window, they were still like a sharp sword. Let's go. Let's go up and meet Alex. Tang Zheng held Mu Hongyan's hand and walked in with large strides. Meeting Alex at the stairs, Alex didn't run away in a panic. This was his castle. If he ran away, then people would laugh their heads off. You have guts, actually daring to break into my house. Alex said with a gloomy face. But his eyes were fixed on Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan's hands that were held together, and he shouted, I knew I wasn't wrong. That night it was the two of you, right? You lied to Anne. Mu Hongyan heard this and wanted to withdraw her hand, but Tang Zheng held on tightly. Since Alex had already broken through once, then he wasn't afraid of a second time. If you tell Anne, will she believe you? Tang Zheng asked indifferently. You. Alex's white cheeks immediately swelled red. You lied to her. One day, she will see through your true colors. Do you really like Anne that much? Tang Zheng asked. Of course. I've liked her since I was a teenager. I swore that I would definitely pursue her. I've already defeated many opponents, but I didn't expect that you would appear out of nowhere. Alex felt wronged. What if I tell you that I have no feelings for Anne at all? Tang Zheng asked. These were his heartfelt words. He already had enough women by his side. Although Anne was outstanding and had a noble status, he really didn't have any improper thoughts about her. Otherwise, with his charm and methods, he would have conquered Princess Anne's body and mind. What? No idea? Alex looked as if he had seen a ghost. No one had ever said such a thing. From the elderly to the children, everyone admired Princess Anne. This person actually said that he didn't have any feelings for her. Was he a fool? He didn't believe it. He sneered and said, "Do you think I'll let my guard down and let you take advantage of this situation?" Tang Zheng was slightly stunned. He laughed involuntarily. "I don't care whether you believe it or not. I'm just stating my thoughts. I didn't come to Europe to fight with you, Foran. I'm not your enemy. But if you really treat me as an enemy, the one who will suffer in the end will definitely be you, not me." Huh, what a joke. This is Europe. Do you think it's that ancient and backward, Huaxia? Alex laughed disdainfully. Tang Jing shook his head. He turned to Mu Hongyan and said, "Some people are just stubborn. When I talk to him nicely, he thinks that I'm weak. Sigh, it's really troublesome." Looking at his playful appearance, Mu Hongyan couldn't help but laugh. She played along and asked, "Then what should we do?" That's why martial arts are very useful in many situations. Because it's more direct and doesn't need to waste time. After Tang Jing finished speaking, he grabbed with his hand and used the sky-swallowing technique. A powerful suction force gushed out from his palm. Alex screamed, "What are you doing?" Then, he was forced to fly towards Tang Zhang and was firmly caught by him. Although Alex was a member of the Rothschild family, he didn't practice any profound martial arts. He only knew some basic martial arts. How could he be compared to Tang Zhang? But he was quite knowledgeable. Looking at Tang Zhang's move, he was really shocked. Because, even a holy knight didn't have this kind of ability. Witchcraft, this is definitely witchcraft. He roared. Tang Zheng laughed. Who said it was witchcraft? If it's not witchcraft, then what is it? I think you're really a frog at the bottom of a well. I even suspect that you're a member of the Rothschild family. Louis of the Rockefeller family knows much more than you. Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed. Alex was stunned. He asked, "You know that despicable person Louis?" "Oh, you also think he's a despicable person?" "Of course, he's the best at playing tricks. He's made me suffer quite a few times," Alex said bitterly. "With your methods, you'll only be at a disadvantage in front of him." Tang Jing nodded in agreement. "What do you mean?" "No, how do you know Louis? Are you in cahoots with him? You should know that Louis is dead, right?" "Of course, I heard that he was killed by someone. It's really satisfying. If I meet this hero, I'll definitely thank him for his gentlemanly actions," Alex said. Ha ha ha. Tang Jing finally couldn't help but laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Alex was confused. "Don't laugh. Thank you for your praise. I can reluctantly accept the title of hero," Tang Jing said enigmatically. Alex's eyes rolled a few times. He seemed to be thinking about the meaning of Tang Zheng's words. After a while, he reacted and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. "You're saying you killed Bruce?" Tang Zheng smiled and nodded. Alex was about to tell him to stop bragging, but seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, he swallowed his words back. Because he was sure that the other party didn't seem to be bragging. Then his background was too big. He actually dared to kill Louis. "Who exactly are you?" Alex asked, still in shock. "A Huaxia person." "Nonsense, when did Huaxia people have such guts?" "That's Louis. You killed him. Would the Rockefeller family let you go?" Alex retorted with a look of disbelief. "Who said they let me go?" "Nicholas personally brought people to kill me," Tang Jing calmly said. Alex's eyes almost popped out. His heart jumped to his throat. He took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in his heart. "Liar. Nicholas wants to kill you. How can you stand in front of me in one piece? You've already died who knows how many times." Tang Jing secretly sighed. Nicholas's name was indeed big in Europe. Even Alex was afraid of him. "Why don't you believe me when I tell you the truth?" "How can I believe your lies?" "I'm not a fool," Alex said with a look of self-confidence. "Who said you're not a fool?" You don't even believe the truth. If you're not a fool, then what are you? When Alex heard this, his cheeks turned red. His eyes were about to spit fire. Tang Zheng ignored his anger and said, Nicholas came to kill me. But in the end, he also died in my hands. Impossible. Impossible. Alex shook his head like a rattledrum, firmly denying it. What's impossible? How could you possibly kill Nikolai? That year, the 12 holy knights joined hands to resist him. Alex's worldview was about to collapse. The 12 holy knights were already very powerful in his heart. But without a doubt, Nicholas was even more powerful. Now that Tang Zheng said that Nicholas died in his hands, even if Alex was a little brainless, he still thought that it was impossible. Don't you know that Nicholas is already dead? Of course I know. But it's said that he died of a serious illness. Died of a serious illness? Are vampires afraid of getting sick? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. Alex's cheeks turned red. He understood vampires. It was said that they were immortal. How could they be afraid of getting sick? Could it be that Nicholas was really killed by him? Alex couldn't help but think, but he still couldn't accept this fact. Doesn't that mean he's more powerful than the 12 holy knights combined? Alex previously thought that Tang Zheng couldn't compare to the holy knights, but now it seemed that he was much more powerful than the holy knights. Alex's expression kept changing. He looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. The faint smile on Tang Zheng's face suddenly became unfathomable. He took a deep breath and said, You caught me. Could it be that you want to kill me? The Rockefeller family is Rothschild's enemy. I helped you get rid of your enemy. Shouldn't you express your gratitude? Tang Zheng asked. Alex said, logically speaking, I should thank you. But you deceived Anne. Don't expect me to thank you. It seems that you are really infatuated with Anne. Of course. Alex raised his head proudly. Tang Zheng shook his head. It's not that I want to discourage you. Although I don't have any thoughts about Anne, she has no thoughts about you. What's the use of you being so passionate? My sincerity will always move her. Alex was full of confidence. I didn't come to you today to talk about these romantic matters. Your Rothschild family's intelligence is said to be the best in Europe, right? Alex wasn't an idiot. He knew what she was trying to say and said, You want to ask for information from my family. You're not too stupid. Who said I'm stupid? Alex was furious. He looked down at the hand that grabbed him and sneered. You have a request, but you treat me like this. Do you think I will give you information? This is because you don't cooperate. Tang Zheng let go of his hand. Alex tidied up his clothes and said, Based on what you did to Anne, I won't cooperate with you. Is that so? I didn't come to you to beg you. If you don't cooperate, I'm afraid you will suffer a lot. Moreover, I don't think you know the information, so take me to see your family. You dare to go to my family? Why wouldn't I dare? Tang Zheng shrugged. Nicholas made your family suffer a lot. I don't think I'm weaker than Nicholas. Chapter 928. Who said I want to be your family's enemy? If you capture me and interrogate me for information, won't that make you my family's enemy? Alex retorted. Can you represent your family? Of course. Alex answered with a guilty conscience. Tang Zheng declined to comment as he lightly smiled and said, Bring me to your clan. There are no conditions to be discussed. Finished speaking, he grabbed Alex with his big hand. Alex screamed, but there was nothing he could do. Go. Tang Zheng gave a low shout and walked out of the castle with large strides. The other guards wanted to stop him, but they could not get up. They could only watch as Tang Zheng grabbed their family's young master and left. Mu Hongyan's eyes were full of splendor. She was not afraid, but rather excited. Young Master Tang, please show mercy. Bruce finally rushed over anxiously and stood in front of the three of them. Young Master Tang, don't act recklessly. Seeing Tang Zheng grab Alex's collar, Bruce earnestly advised. I'm not being reckless. But this. Bruce's face was ugly as he pointed at Tang Zheng's hand. I'm asking him to cooperate with me and take me to visit the Rothschild family. What, you want to visit the Rothschild family? Bruce turned pale with fright. Even His Majesty the King would not easily get involved with the Rothschild family. Because the other party was too mysterious. Putting himself in danger was not a wise move. Absolutely not. Bruce hurriedly used his body to block them and desperately shook his head. Young Master Tang, listen to my advice. The Rothschild family is not an ordinary place. You absolutely cannot put yourself in danger. Tang Zheng was anxious to know the real culprit behind the scenes and said firmly, I won't go. Do you have a way to get them to tell me the information? This. I don't have that much power. But His Majesty can coordinate. Bruce said. Tang Zheng laughed secretly. His Majesty was already in a terrible fix because of the disappearance of the crystals. How could he have the time to think about these things? In the king's mind, the matter of the crystals was obviously more important than this matter. Bruce, go back and tell His Majesty that I'll be back soon. Don't worry. If I really don't come back, ask Tian Chanzi to come and find me. Tang Zheng's tone was relaxed, as if he was traveling. This made Alex want to vomit blood. Even the royal family was afraid of his family, but in Tang Zheng's eyes, his family was like a tourist attraction. He could enter and leave as he pleased. Tang Zheng did not take it seriously at all. He made up his mind and said, since you look down on my clan so much, I'll take you there. However, don't run away when the time comes. Do you think I'll run away? Tang Zheng asked with a smile. Alex was not sure. Thinking of what Tang Zheng had done to Louis and Nicholas, he felt even more guilty. Well, since you've thought it through, then lead the way. Don't play tricks, or you'll be the one to suffer. Tang Zheng warned. Alex snorted and did not comment. He strode toward the parking lot and said, if you have the guts, then get in the car with me. Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan did not hesitate to follow. Bruce was in a dilemma. He could not follow, but it seemed inappropriate not to follow. He was burning with anxiety. He angrily stomped his foot, turned around and walked away. He said to himself, I must report to His Majesty immediately. Young Master Tang is too reckless. If he really has a conflict with the Rothschild family, it will be terrible. Alex drove, and the group of people rushed to their destination. The Rothschild family was not in Sweden. They had to cross the country's border and go north. After 2 days of unimpeded driving, they entered another small country. This small country was just a small dot on the map. It might not even be as big as a prefecture-level city in Huaxia. It was full of green, making people feel relaxed and happy. My family is about to arrive. It's not too late to back out now. Alex said bitterly. In these 2 days, they had only taken a short rest. The rest of the time, Alex was driving. His mind and body had suffered a great deal. His eyes were bloodshot. He occasionally wanted to crash into a tree next to him. He wanted to destroy the car and perish together with the other party. Concentrate on driving. You don't need to worry about anything else. Tang Zheng said lightly. This kind of long journey was a piece of cake for him. Even Mu Hongyan did not feel tired. She had tasted the taste of cultivation for the first time. Along the way, she was carefully comprehending the mysteries of cultivation. A majestic castle gradually appeared, and only when it was close enough did they get a full view of it. Compared to the previous castle, it was like the difference between an eagle and a chick. This castle was too magnificent. Although it could not be compared with the imperial city in Huaxia, it was definitely second to none in Europe. It was the largest and most magnificent castle. Just by looking at it from afar, a sense of grandeur and the vicissitudes of history hit them in the face. Mu Hongyan's eyes widened in surprise. The Rothschild family's heritage is really extraordinary. Alex raised his head high. His bloodshot eyes were full of pride. Suddenly, Tang Zheng felt danger lurking on both sides of the road. He remained calm and said without even looking, "Your family has so many people lying in ambush on both sides of the road. What's the use?" Alex's eyelids twitched. Tang Zheng did not even look, but he actually found the people lurking in the dark. He was too amazing. In the face of Tang Zheng's ridicule, Alex immediately retorted, "Nonsense. Whether it's nonsense or not, you'll see in a moment." As soon as he finished speaking, a white horse rushed out of the castle. This seemed to be a signal. Following closely behind, 11 white horses rushed out like a wisp of smoke. These 12 horses had pure white hair without a trace of impurities. They were like the champions of a horse beauty contest. The 12 people on the horses were all wearing thick armor and helmets with a metallic luster on their heads. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but without exception, they all had imposing appearances. Screech! The car suddenly braked, leaving a long tire mark on the ground. Alex almost hit his head on the steering wheel. His eyes were round as he stared at the 12 horsemen coming towards him as if he had seen a ghost. The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely and said, "The 12 holy knights are all out." Ever since the defeat of the Rockefeller family, the 12 holy knights had disappeared. Even if there was a real threat, there had never been a situation where the 12 holy knights were all out. This time, the 12 holy knights were all out. How could Alex not be shocked? He subconsciously turned his head to look at Tang Zheng. His lips opened and closed, but not a single word came out. Alex understood very well that since the family had sent out the 12 holy knights, it naturally meant that they already knew that Tang Zheng had the corresponding strength. In other words, what Tang Zheng said was true. Louis and Nicholas had died at his hands. Tang Zheng stared fixedly at the 12 holy knights and said with interest, "Your family is smarter than you. They didn't send 1 or 2 holy knights to deal with me. Instead, they sent out all of them." Tang Zheng opened the door and got out, standing in front of the car. Mu Hongyan also wanted to get out, but she was stopped by Tang Zheng with a wave of his hand, "You just watch from the car. No one can cross this line and hurt you." Mu Hongyan's eyes were full of spirit. The corner of her mouth hooked up into a faint smile as she stayed in the car as she was told. She took the lead, with the others half a step behind. The 12 holy knights stopped at the same time, as if they had been trained countless times. Tang Zheng stood steadily in the same place, raising his head to look at the 12 holy knights. "I know your intentions. You definitely want to fight, so I won't say much. Let's talk after the fight." Tang Zheng seemed to be deep in thought. Since the Rothschild family didn't come out and let the 12 holy knights come out together, it was naturally to further test his strength. Tang Zheng held War Soul in his hand and walked towards the other party step by step. He strolled leisurely, as if this wasn't a battlefield, but a park. The holy knight in the lead raised his sword. The wide and thick heavy sword shone coldly under the sunlight. Even under the scorching sun, it made people feel a soul-stirring murderous aura. The heavy sword, the armor, and the fierce horse formed a strange scenery under the sunlight. The holy knight in the lead raised the heavy sword in his hand and aimed it at Tang Zheng. With a shake of the reins, he charged forward as fast as lightning. At the same time, the other holy knights also charged together. Their heavy swords were all aimed at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng suddenly accelerated, like a gust of wind. This time he chose to meet force with force. Puff puff puff, the 12 holy knights arrived one after another, layer upon layer, and slashed at Tang Zheng who was on the ground. However, Tang Zheng disappeared. They looked up in shock and found that he had actually flown above their heads and slashed down with War Soul. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, 12 rays of sword light fell from the sky, as if the sunlight was split apart by these 12 rays of sword light. Bang bang bang. 12 crisp sounds rang out. All the heavy swords were hit by these rays of sword light. 12 cracks appeared, then turned into 24, 36, and finally, there were more and more. Pa pa pa, the 12 holy knights shattered into pieces one after another. The Holy Knight looked at the heavy sword in his hand dumbfoundedly. He was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out from behind his helmet. With just one move, victory and defeat were decided. They never thought that someone could achieve this kind of power. They looked at the thin figure in shock, and the sword in his hand that was suffused with light. Their heroic spirit could not help but disappear. Tang Zheng was also surprised at his own fighting strength. Yuanying realm was indeed extraordinary. An endless stream of true qi filled his body and mind, and then merged into war soul. It was also the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, but its power was much higher than before. His fighting spirit was high, his eyes lit up, and he was ready to completely destroy the opponent's arrogance in one go. Thus, he floated in the air and raised war soul once again. Suddenly, a strange yet familiar thought entered his mind. His arms subconsciously waved, and war soul fell. Mighty, completely different sword qi slashed down with an earth-shattering force. Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique. The Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique that he had completely forgotten suddenly appeared out of thin air. Chapter 929. Tang Zheng had only learned 2 moves of the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique, and this time, he was using the first move. Although he was shocked, the war soul sword had already slashed down. Peng peng peng, with a series of explosions, the 12 holy knights fell from their horses and fell to the ground. Their heavy armor was scattered and turned into pieces. They revealed their true appearance. Except for the leader who was an old man, the others were all young men. Tang Zheng was stunned. Except for the old man, the other holy knights were definitely not the ones who had attacked the Rockefeller family. Perhaps they were their descendants. These people climbed up from the ground in a sorry state and looked at Tang Zheng with a pale face. They were in a dilemma. If they fought, they would definitely not win. If they fled, that would be too shameful. Tang Zheng ignored them. He turned his head and walked towards the car door, reaching out his hand. He said, "Sister Mu, come down. The outcome has been decided." Mu Hongyan happily got off the car, as if she had won the battle. She looked at him passionately. If there were not so many people, she would have given him a kiss. Alex lay on the ground on the steering wheel and hit the horn hard, making an ear-piercing sound. He kept growling, "Impossible. This is not real." Although he was mentally prepared, he did not expect the 12 holy knights to be defeated so easily. Tang Zheng held Mu Hongyan and walked in front of the holy knights. The old man suddenly asked, "This is Huaxia's magic? You are more knowledgeable than Alex." Tang Zheng nodded. "It is indeed powerful." The old man praised from the bottom of his heart. His eyes kept changing and finally sighed, "You are a guest. Please come this way, the family head has been waiting for a long time." Tang Zheng understood in his heart, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. This was the same as his judgment, the 12 holy knights were testing his skills. If he was not the same as the rumors, then there was naturally no need to talk. He had proven his strength, so he was qualified to sit down and talk. He was not angry. Instead, he nodded slightly in agreement. Under the gazes of the holy knights, he followed the old man into the castle. A middle-aged man stood at the entrance to welcome them. He was the current head of the Rothschild family, Alex's father, Abraham. Abraham was tall and had a sharp gaze. There were a few wrinkles on his forehead, which made him look very dignified. Abraham saw the battle just now. His greatest reliance had been defeated so easily. One could imagine the storm in his heart. However, he did not panic. According to the information he received, the other party was not an enemy. They were here for information. Moreover, the King of Sweden's personal call had dispelled a lot of the hostility in his heart, but it was also reasonable to test Tang Zheng's strength. Of course, he knew Tang Zheng better than many people and knew that the Rockefeller family had actually fallen into his hands. Of course, he would not repeat the mistakes of the Rockefeller family. Only cooperation could lead to a win-win situation. This was his strategy. He first extended his hand, took a step forward, and shook hands with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was relieved. This was the same as what he had expected. This was a smart person. Not everyone in the world was an enemy. If a person really became the enemy of the whole world, no matter how strong they were, it would be difficult to escape the fate of being eliminated. He was beyond the reach of Europe and even the Atlantic Empire. He needed such a strong and smart partner. "Welcome," Abraham said briefly and powerfully. "Thank you." Tang Zheng nodded and said directly, "I need information." Abraham waved to his attendant, who came over with an exquisite gilded plate with a piece of paper on it. "The information you want is here." Tang Zheng nodded approvingly. This was a smart person. It was easy to deal with smart people. Tang Zheng opened the paper and immediately frowned. There was a long list of names on it. There was more than one, and they were all familiar names. He had seen these people before. "It's them?" "Yes, they were the ones who assassinated Princess Anne and attacked you in business," Abraham said in an absolute tone. No one doubted the truth of his words. "So that's how it is." Tang Zheng suddenly realized. He gradually understood why these people were so deranged. These people were actually the European royal families who had cooperated with Tang Zheng. At that time, when they heard the news of Tang Zheng's death, they abandoned the spirit of the contract and tore up the cooperation contract. Now that he had overthrown the Rockefeller family and was coming in strong, they wanted to cut him off and frame the Rothschild family. They wanted Tang Zheng to become enemies with this family and then profit from it. It was really a good plan. They even led the flames of war to my family. Naturally, I will not stay out of it, Abraham said calmly, but the anger hidden in his words was very strong. "Then what are you going to do?" "Let them know what the Rothschild family relied on to stand for hundreds of years on this continent," Abraham said confidently. "Then what am I going to do?" "Please wait and see. This is a greeting gift for a distinguished guest who has come from afar. This greeting gift is not light." "Then I will wait and see." Tang Zheng did not decline pretentiously. "From now on, I will protect your interests on this continent. Absolutely no one will dare to touch it." Abraham continued to express his attitude. Tang Zheng's eyes slightly narrowed. The conditions provided by Abraham were so good that it was beyond his expectations. "What are your conditions?" Tang Zheng asked. "There are no conditions, because the Rothschild family wants to be true friends with you," Abraham said sincerely. Alex caught up and just happened to hear this sentence. His mouth was wide open as he looked in disbelief at his father's humble attitude. "I like to make friends the most. I have always been good to my friends. My enemies don't like this very much," Tang Zheng said. Abraham said firmly, "The Rothschild family will never be your enemy. Then we will take our leave." Abraham still wanted to urge him to stay, but in the end he resisted. If he wanted to further communicate with Tang Zheng and even become true friends, his next move was the key. Only by making Tang Zheng satisfied could their friendship be maintained. "I will send you off." "No need." Tang Zheng threw the War Soul sword into the air, and the War Soul sword floated steadily in the air. He held Mu Hongyan's hand and leaped onto the sword. So, War Soul turned into a sword light and disappeared without a trace. This kind of ghostly method caused the minds of the people present to go blank. After a long while, they finally retracted their gazes from the direction where War Soul disappeared. Alex was originally questioning him, but he could not say a single word. His head hung low as if it was about to fall into the dust. The 12 paladins were even more dejected and sighed. They had always boasted of being strong, but now they realized how weak they were. Abraham became even more determined in his thoughts and muttered to himself, "The ancestors of the family once warned us that we must never set foot in the mysterious eastern Huaxia." After so many years, many people have long forgotten this admonition. Rockefeller practiced this admonition and finally made many people remember this iron law again. In ancient times, Huaxia was worthy of being called the center of the world. All countries worshipped it, but in the past few hundred years, the country's strength had become weaker and weaker. It was even bullied by the powers, making people forget that it was a dragon that had been sleeping. Abraham knew that the dragon was finally about to wake up. The iron law of the ancestors was indeed correct. If they cooperated with this dragon, the Rothschild family would be able to reach a higher level. If they were to become enemies, they would definitely be destroyed. The Rockefeller family was the best proof. Alex, from now on, you are not allowed to pursue Princess Anne. Abraham's gaze turned and he gave his son an unquestionable order. Alex raised his head and asked indignantly, why? Tang Zheng has already made it clear that he is not interested in Anne. But Anne is interested in him. Can't I pursue my own happiness? Alex was furious. Your happiness is not with Anne. Besides, after so many years, can't you recognize reality? Alex was speechless. Abraham ignored his son's grievances and said to the head of the paladins, action. The old man nodded and understood tacitly. Tang Zheng returned to the Swedish palace and suffered a lot of complaints from Princess Anne. Fortunately, His Majesty the King summoned him and he was able to escape from Anne's nagging. His Majesty the King and Tang Zheng had a secret discussion for a long time. When he heard the reaction of the Rothschild family, he was shocked. This old family finally put down their pride and took the initiative to show goodwill to Tang Zheng. This showed the importance of Tang Zheng. He couldn't help but feel a little moved. If Anne really came together with him, wouldn't it be a good thing? If the Rothschild family had this opportunity, they would definitely not let it go. Why should he let it go? Many of the marriages of the royal family members were for benefits. Although His Majesty the King felt sorry for Anne, since this was her wish, why not share the benefits with his daughter's happiness? It was a blessing to have the best of both worlds. Moreover, the mastermind behind the scenes this time was actually the royal family of those countries, which made him feel even more pressure. These countries had secretly formed an alliance. If he didn't firmly hold on to the big tree of Tang Zheng, then his future days would definitely be difficult. Of course, he also blamed the disappearance of the crystal on the heads of these royal families, and his hostility towards them increased greatly. Immediately, the way he looked at Tang Zheng gradually became thought-provoking. Tang Zheng didn't notice the king's strange behavior. When he returned to his room, Anne chased after him and stared at him with wide eyes. She said angrily, "Do you know that you were wrong this time?" Tang Zheng didn't think much of it. "What did I do wrong?" "You didn't care about your own safety and put yourself in danger." "If this isn't wrong, then what is?" Anne stared at him stubbornly. "I don't think there will be any danger." "What if there is?" "That's the Rothschild family, an existence that all the royal families in Europe are very afraid of." "Aren't I fine now?" All in all, this time I was worried to death. I'm very angry." Anne pouted, no different from a young girl in love. Chapter 930. Liking a person is a happy thing, but if the falling flower is in love with the heartless brook, then it will be torturous. In these few days, Anne understood her own feelings and confirmed that she liked Tang Zheng. Especially when she heard that he was in danger, she wanted to fly over to help him. She pleaded with her father many times, and His Majesty was forced to call Abraham many times. Now that she finally saw him come back safe and sound, she had mixed feelings. She pouted and looked at him with hidden bitterness. "I was so worried about you. You didn't even coax me and went to see my father." Anne complained. Although Tang Zheng was not interested in her, but she was a princess and cared about him so much. If he treated her coldly, it would be unreasonable. "Thank you, Anne." Anne's eyes suddenly lit up like a light and said, "Then how do you want to thank me?" "How do you want to thank me?" Tang Zheng blinked his eyes with a headache. "Can't you tell that I am just being polite? How can you take advantage of me like this?" Anne raised her head. "My father doesn't want me to go to Huaxia." "You go and persuade him." "I want to go back to Huaxia." "Why do you want to go back? You don't want to go to school again?" I don't care. And acted spoiled like a little girl in love. After all, she was only 19 years old and this was the first time she liked someone. Tang Zheng had a headache. She wanted to create an opportunity to get along with him. Wasn't this leading her astray? His Majesty has his own considerations. It is not good for me to interfere. Didn't you say that you want to thank me? Hung, you don't keep your promise at all. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry and explained, this is your family's matter. It is not good for me to interfere. It is hard to leave your homeland. It is better for you to stay in your own country. I don't want to do it. I have already stayed here for 19 years. I want to go to the outside world and explore it. However, if you stay here, I will not leave. And slyly said. I will not stay. Then I won't stay. And was extremely stubborn. The two of them stared at each other, unwilling to give in. In any case, this is my only request. Since you promised me, then you must fulfill it. Otherwise, I will hate you for the rest of my life. Is it that exaggerated? Of course, women hold grudges, and I'm one of them. You're a princess. Shouldn't you be elegant and tolerant? This is the real me now, and said stubbornly. 2 days later, an explosive piece of news spread. The kings on the list had all changed hands and were forced to abdicate their thrones. This caused the world's politics to tremble like an earthquake. Everyone was stunned, not knowing what had happened. Tang Zheng understood that this was the work of the Rothschild family. Although he did not know how they did it, it was clear that they had great influence to make so many kings change owners at once. Tang Zheng couldn't help but rejoice. If he had insisted on going against the Rothschild family, although he wouldn't have failed, it would still be troublesome. He didn't have that much time to waste in Europe. All the obstacles disappeared. Mu Hongyan successfully took over the relevant industries, and Tang Zheng became a world-class superpower. Of course, the people in the country definitely didn't know. Only a few people knew that Rockefeller's industries had fallen into the hands of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng didn't continue to pursue the matter. After all, it was impossible for him to really kill all those treacherous kings. Since they had lost their thrones, they had lost their most precious things. Naturally, they couldn't make any big waves. He had won this conflict. This series of events made His Majesty look at Tang Zheng in a new light, and he became more and more convinced of his idea. Mu Hongyan couldn't leave Europe for a while, but Tang Zheng couldn't delay any longer. However, he didn't leave her alone. He transferred a few witch tribe warriors from the country to protect her. Only then did he leave with peace of mind. During this time, the king finally couldn't help but want to persuade Tian Chanzi to stay, but he was rejected without hesitation. The king originally wanted Tian Chanzi to teach the royal cultivation method, but he couldn't bring himself to say this request after being rejected so rudely. Because he knew that he would definitely be rejected even if he brought it up, why bother? Seeing that the two of them were about to leave, the connection with them would definitely weaken. He was unwilling to give up, and finally made up his mind to let and accompany them back to Huaxia. This suggestion was out of everyone's expectations, but Annie was so excited that she almost jumped 3 feet into the air. She looked at Tang Zheng affectionately, mistakenly thinking that this was all because he was secretly pleading for her. The queen was quite dissatisfied with this decision, but after listening to the king's explanation, she could only choose to acquiesce. On the other hand, Tang Zheng rolled his eyes helplessly. He thought to himself, Your Majesty, is there anyone who would throw their daughter away like this? It seems like she can't get married. Mu Hongyan secretly pulled Tang Zheng to the side and teased him. As a woman, she knew Anne's thoughts too well. She wasn't too jealous. Ever since she chose to accept Tang Zheng, she knew that all this was inevitable. She was the most open-minded of all the women. Perhaps it was related to her special experience that made her more mature and wise. With Tang Zheng's cultivation, it was almost impossible to monopolize him. She also didn't dare to have such extravagant hopes. Tang Zheng couldn't say anything, but he couldn't refuse Anne's infatuation. He thought to himself that he should just stay as far away from her as possible. However, when the two of them got on the plane, they realized how unrealistic this idea was. And was like a piece of candy, sticking to him closely. As for Tian Chanzi, he automatically became a third wheel and stayed far away from her. They didn't take a private plane back. And went to Huaxia as an ordinary person. However, the first-class cabin was still booked by the rich and imposing imperial family to prevent others from disturbing them. And lay beside Tang Zheng and said with a smile, "You swore that you wouldn't persuade my father, but you actually did it secretly. You really know how to surprise people." Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and said truthfully, "I didn't persuade him." "Humph, you're still quibbling now." "Whatever, it's fine as long as I understand it in my heart. This time, I don't need to go to Huaxia. I want to follow you every day and integrate into your life." And made up her mind. "Our relationship is developing so fast. I wasn't sure before, but now I'm sure that I like you. There are also other people who are eyeing you covetously. Of course I can't let my guard down." And said with a set of words. Tang Jing shook his head and didn't say anything. Annie was determined to chase after him. This was something that would make many men elated, but he felt a great deal of pressure. This time when they went back, the others wouldn't be as easy to talk to as Mu Hongyan. He didn't know if it would lead to a war between these women. In such a big villa, he was afraid that there would be a fight every day. Just thinking about it made his heart tremble. And talked non-stop all the way, and Tang Zheng was a quiet listener. When the plane finally landed, he looked at the familiar sky of Beijing and let out a sigh of relief. The summer in Beijing was very hot, and people felt like they were being roasted by the sun. Some time ago, the storm in the imperial city had calmed down. Beijing was peaceful again, and people were rushing to make a living. After Tang Zheng and the other two returned to the villa, the girls were in high spirits, but the happiness didn't last long. Because An quietly moved her luggage from upstairs to the first floor next to Tang Zheng's. This action made everyone subconsciously stop what they were doing and look at her strangely. Seeing everyone looking at her, and calmly explained, "It's too tiring to climb up and down every day, so I live on the first floor." No one believed this lame excuse, and everyone looked at her and Tang Zheng a few more times. Tang Zheng looked down, as if saying it had nothing to do with him. But the girls couldn't think that it had nothing to do with them, especially Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang. During this period of time, the relationship between the two had advanced by leaps and bounds, as if they had formed some kind of alliance. They went out together, and occasionally went shopping together. This was a situation that Tang Zheng had never expected. Yi Dingdang seemed to have changed into a different person, which made him puzzled. When An moved her luggage into the house, Tang Zheng was immediately surrounded by Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir. Wu and Lu Qingmei also wanted to surround him, but in the end, they restrained themselves. "What's going on?" Yi Dingdang asked straightforwardly. Tang Zheng innocently said, "How would I know? If you don't know, then who should know?" Yi Dingdang asked, "You went to her country, and then came back, she moved next door to you. Isn't that obvious?" Tang Zheng pretended to be at a loss and shook his head. "Didn't she say that she didn't want to climb up and down? Is this reason sufficient?" Fang Shishir finally couldn't help but ask. Although she tolerated Tang Zheng, she couldn't remain indifferent when she saw that and had signs of getting involved. It was a simple question. Tang Zheng really wanted to bite the bullet and say that it was sufficient, but in the end, he didn't say it out loud. He bitterly smiled. "How would I know? Sure, isn't it obvious? It must be because the two of them were alone abroad and sparks flew between them." Yi Dingdang's fiery personality was clearly displayed as she spoke without thinking. "Absolutely not." Tang Zheng hurriedly denied as he felt wronged. "Hang, it's clearly sophistry. Sure, we can't spoil him like this. Otherwise, who knows what he'll do in the future. We must guard against him," Yi Dingdang said. Fang Shishir hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. Sure, why are you also like this?" Tang Zheng wanted to cry but had no tears. Don't take your anger out on Shirshir. This is your fault. Seeing Tang Jing being besieged again and again, Lan Yu couldn't bear to watch any longer and said, maybe there's a misunderstanding. He's had a hard time, so let him rest first. Seeing Lan Yu say this, the two didn't pursue the matter any further. After all, they had to give their future mother-in-law face. Lan Yu kindly looked at Tang Zheng and said, Little Zheng, you go rest first. Tang Zheng gratefully looked at her and hurriedly slipped back into his room. And tidied up and came out, but she didn't see Tang Zheng's figure. She was about to knock on the door when Yi Dingdang rushed to stop her and asked, just what is your relationship with him? And smiled and said, I like him, so I want to pursue him. What, you want to pursue him? Everyone was shocked by her sonorous declaration of love. What's wrong with that? Annie asked. Of course not. Fang Shishir, Yi Dingdang, and Wu Du said at the same time. Lu Qingmei also said the same thing in her heart. Without the support of a true expert, the rise of a family was like a castle in the air. It could easily collapse. However, Yan Padian was a little serious. He said that he still had to pay more attention to the Ye family, as Yi Xuanji was not an ordinary person. Tang Zheng laughed it off. Yan Padian and Qin Badian asked about the gains of Tang Zheng's trip to Europe. Tang Zheng gave a simple introduction, and the two of them were completely shocked. The way they looked at Tang Zheng was extremely complicated. This was an achievement that many people could not even dream of, but it was completed by Tang Zheng with just a raise of his hand. Only now did they understand why Tang Zheng did not put the Yi family in his eyes at all. The difference in vision between the two sides was like heaven and earth. Tang Zheng repeatedly warned them not to tell anyone, and they all understood tacitly. On this day, the weather was clear. The arrival of a group of people broke the silence of the villa. This group of people had different styles, and there were old, young, and young people. Tang Zheng stood at the door to welcome them. His gaze was complicated, especially when it landed on one of them, Wu Junshan, his biological father. Wu Junshan also looked at him, filled with mixed feelings. Tang Zheng nodded slightly, which could be considered as a greeting, and then shifted his gaze to the others. The Witch Clan elder brought a few elites from the clan. This time, he had asked the Witch Clan elder to come here with a mission. Because within here, he could not rashly take out the spar and let everyone absorb the energy to cultivate. That would be a confession without a fight. He was prepared to let the Witch Clan elder bring the spar back to the island. The so-called sacred ground was naturally built on the island, and that was his base. In addition, the summer vacation had already begun. He was prepared to let Fang Shishir, Lu Qingmei, and the others go to the island in the name of a vacation to secretly cultivate. This way, he could avoid An. The spar was of great importance. Unless it was the Witch Clan elder escorting it, he would not be at ease. Moreover, the Witch Clan elder had repeatedly requested to see him, so he allowed it. When the elders and clansmen saw Tang Zheng, they were extremely excited. They all stepped forward and bowed, calling out to Lord Envoy. Tang Zheng looked at them with gratification. This group of Witch Clan people had already firmly merged with him. Even if Qi Yu was revived, he might not be able to control them. Elder, and the brothers of the Witch Clan, it's been a long journey. Everyone shook their heads. It's not hard, hearing the envoy summons. We are excited. We all want to be like Ah Yuan, able to help the envoy, and not stay on the island to live a comfortable life. Yi Yuan brought a group of clansmen to travel around the country to protect Tang Linger. Life on the island is not comfortable, but a kind of preparation. When everyone is ready, I naturally look forward to everyone coming back to help me. Tang Zheng said. The Witch Clan members that returned this time were at least fasting. The Witch Clan members had cultivated the Chaotic Vajra spell and the God-slaying scroll, and their cultivation had advanced at a rapid pace. The Witch Clan was indeed worthy of being Qi Yu's old subordinates. Many people could not compare to their bloodline. Cultivation talent was hidden in his bloodline. Once it was activated, the potential that would erupt would be extremely dazzling. Yes, Lord Envoy. Everyone nodded. Wu Junshan was not surprised. He could see the admiration and respect that the witch clan members had for Tang Zheng from the bottom of their hearts during his daily life on the island. Tang Zheng's words were like an imperial edict. At the same time that he was gratified, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. After operating in the martial sect for so many years, he had indeed subdued a portion of his trusted aides. However, even more people were disloyal to him, and in the end, even became his enemy. The new generation overtook the old, and that was it. The witch clan members did not all live in the villa. Instead, they were arranged to live in some of the surrounding buildings. That was their residence. The villa had been attacked a few times, making Tang Zheng more and more aware of the importance of safety. This was his home, and he had to protect it in all aspects. He could not trust others, so arranging for the witch clan members to protect the villa was the safest method. The witch clan was also very happy to do this. Protecting the envoy's home was a great honor. Back then, when they were on the island, the competition for this opportunity could be said to be extremely intense. The witch clan elder and Wu Junshan entered the villa. Lan Yu and Wu Junshan looked at each other. Lan Yu nodded lightly with a trace of a smile on her lips. Wu Junshan's heart moved. He understood what his wife meant. She was saying that her relationship with Tang Zheng had improved. He was also very happy. It was a long and difficult road to win back Tang Zheng's respect, but he had to do it. However, looking at the room full of women, Wu Junshan slapped his forehead. He felt a headache coming on. Although he had heard of it, seeing it with his own eyes still shocked him. It was as if the most beautiful women in the world lived here. His son was much stronger than him in this aspect. He could not even handle a wife. He did not know how this kid dealt with women. As someone who had experienced it before, although it was his first time seeing these women, he did not think that they were really pure friends with Tang Zheng. As a man, he knew this too well. The elder was not surprised. Even in ancient times, it was normal to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. He felt that it was natural for the strong to have more than one woman. However, it was the first time most of the women in the room had seen the 2 of them. They all opened their eyes wide in curiosity, especially when they found out that Wu Junshan was Tang Zheng's father. And had a bright idea and actually personally poured tea for him, causing the other girls to clench their teeth. This princess was indeed cunning, to think of a bribe so quickly. Wu Junshan accepted it calmly. The other party's princess identity did not have much of a halo to him. His attention was mostly on Wu. Wu Junshan obediently went forward and bowed. Wu Junshan looked at her with approval. His cultivation had improved greatly. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Tang Zheng went straight to the point and said, "I want to announce something. Shishir and Ding Dang are already on summer vacation, so it's not good to stay at home, so why don't we go out and see the outside world? In addition, Teacher Lu has been working very hard during this period of time, so we'll go on vacation with the 2 of them. I will arrange for the elders to accompany you and protect your safety." When these words were spoken, everyone looked at each other in dismay. This was because to most people, this was a sudden attack and they did not know about it beforehand. "Why did you send us away?" Yi Ding Dang keenly noticed the key point and suspiciously looked at Tang Zheng and Anne. "Don't let your imagination run wild. I have business to do." "What business is there that you can't tell us?" Yi Ding Dang asked. The so-called business was that he was preparing to make a trip to the Azure Dragon Palace. Moreover, he was not alone, but gathered many people. Empyrean Fairy had to go, Tian Chanzi also had to go, Lan Yu and Wu were duty-bound, and as for Wu Junshan, when he heard the news, he rushed back even though he was far away. They were originally from the martial organization and were inextricably linked to the Azure Dragon Palace. They wanted to settle things with the Azure Dragon Palace, and this was something that Tang Zheng had no reason to stop. Once these people left, the villa's defensive power would be empty. Tang Zheng did not feel at ease leaving everyone behind. Of course, he did not want to tell them the truth, fearing that they would be worried. Seeing Yi Ding Dang aggressively ask, Tang Zheng wished that he could pick her up and spank her. She was becoming more and more arrogant. Although he had been back for a few days, there were too many people around, so he did not have a chance to be alone with her. Otherwise, he would definitely take care of her. Seeing that Tang Zheng could not answer, Yi Dingdang suddenly realized and said, I understand. You must want to send us away so that you can be with her. Cough cough. Tang Zheng almost choked to death on his saliva. What did this have to do with Anne? Anne's eyes lit up when she heard this. She looked at Tang Zheng in surprise and happily said, What's wrong with that? Men should be given freedom. If you keep controlling them, then they will never grow up. Of course you want it to be like this. You're still pretending to be obedient. Yi Dingdang ridiculed. You must go on vacation. There is no room for discussion. Tang Zheng stared and said unquestionably. Chapter 932. Looking at the stubborn Yi Dingdang, Tang Zheng felt a headache coming on. However, she was not a cultivator, so it did not matter if she did not go to the island. Since that was the case, he would let her be. The corners of Yi Dingdang's mouth curled up into a smile as she coldly looked at Annie, as if to say that she was staring at her. And shrugged her shoulders. It did not matter, it was always a good thing to have one less competitor by her side. What about them? Fang Shishir pointed at Wu and the others and asked curiously. They still have other things to do, so there's no time to lose. They will leave tomorrow. So anxious? Fang Shishir was surprised. Yes, summer vacation is not long. If we leave early, we can play for a few more days. Although everyone had many questions in their hearts, if Tang Zheng did not say anything, no one could force him. Brother, what about me? Nana tugged at the corner of Tang Zheng's clothes. Nana also wants to go out and play. Tang Zheng looked at Empyrean Fairy, and seeing her nod, he carried her and smiled affectionately. Of course you will go too. Nana immediately clapped her hands and said excitedly, That's great, Nana also wants to go out and play, but it would be good if Big Brother came with me. If you stick to Big Brother all day, you won't grow up. Nana thought for a while, then firmly shook her head. No, Nana wants to grow up and become as beautiful as Big Sister and the others. Tang Zheng laughed out loud, and called the clan elder into the study room alone. The two of them talked for a long time, and the clan elder reported to him in detail about the situation on the island. When he heard that there were many new babies born in the witch clan, Tang Zheng was pleasantly surprised. These babies were not comparable to the current adult witch clan. These babies were the new blood, the future of the witch clan. They could cultivate from a young age, so their future achievements would definitely be greater than the current witch clan. When the clan elder heard Tang Zheng introduce the spar, he was overjoyed and said excitedly, If we have this spar, then our clansmen's cultivation will be faster, and we will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Crystals are very important, so they must be closely guarded, do you understand? Understood. The elder nodded heavily. However, there is another life form in this crystal stone. Even though I don't know what it is definitely alive. When we cultivate, the crystal stone will become transparent and everyone will see it. We must be careful because there will be a day when the crystal stone will be completely absorbed and the life form will be released. Tang Zheng solemnly warned. The elder said without hesitation, Sir Envoy, rest assured. Our entire clan will be on guard. If the creature from beyond the heavens comes out, we will definitely capture it alive. No, don't capture it alive. Inform me when it's about to break free. I want to deal with it personally, Tang Zheng said. Although the elder felt that he was making a mountain out of a molehill, he still agreed without hesitation. Shishir and Sister May still don't know about this. When the time comes, you will tell them. Their cultivation is not as good as yours, Elder, so you have to guide them more. Elder, don't worry. I will pass on all my cultivation experiences to them. It's just that the island is remote. I don't know if they have the habit of living here. The elder said worriedly. Tang Jing smiled faintly and said that they were not young misses of rich families, so there was no need to worry about this. That night, everyone in the house sat at a large table to eat. It seemed to be happy and harmonious, but in fact, there was an undercurrent surging. Tang Zheng and Lan Yu's relationship was much more harmonious, but with Wu Junshan, he was still cold. Yi Dingdang and An were fighting openly and secretly. A meal was like a war. In the middle of the night, a person secretly sneaked into Tang Zheng's room. It was actually the reserved Fang Shishir. She was about to leave, so she finally put aside her shyness and cherished this rare moment with Tang Zheng. The two fought to their heart's content for most of the night before falling asleep. Anne, who was next door, did not sleep for most of the night. Although the soundproofing of the room was good, a woman's sixth sense still sensed that there must be another woman lying on Tang Zheng's bed next door. Of course, she was jealous in her heart, but there was nothing she could do. She silently comforted herself that if she persevered, the one lying on the bed would definitely be her. The next day, when the sky was bright, Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir walked out together. Under everyone's gaze, although Fang Shishir was shy, her hand was tightly held by Tang Zheng. She could not escape at all, but she was very happy. This was the two of them openly showing their love, which was a treatment that no one else had ever received. The other women's eyes were burning, wishing that they could replace Fang Shishir. The witch clan elder took a look and left with the crystal stone. The crystal stone was taken out from Sumeru world. The witch clan elder did not have a heaven-level magic treasure storage bag, so he could only quietly put the crystal stone on a truck and drive it to the sea. He had already arranged for a ship to bring the crystal stone to the island. When everyone reluctantly left, Tang Zheng and the others were also ready to leave. At this time, An knew that Tang Jing did not want to stay behind to accompany her, but also wanted to leave. She wanted to chase after him, but was rejected by Tang Zheng without hesitation. Yi Dingdang was immediately overjoyed, so Tang Zheng did not want to be together with An. She had wronged him. Tang Zheng, Empyrean Fairy, Tian Chanzi, Wu Junshan, Lan Yu, Wu Wu, and Li Xiaotian sat in two cars and directly drove out of the capital. But just as they left the capital, the number of cars decreased, and they realized that there was a tail following behind them. It was actually An. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. An had really put in a lot of effort, but this time it was too dangerous, so of course he could not bring her along. Thus, Tang Zheng forcefully sent her back and let Yi Dingdang watch over her. Only then could he leave alone. As for Yi Dingdang and making a ruckus at home, Tang Zheng did not care. In any case, the two of them were evenly matched, so neither of them would be at a disadvantage. 3 days later, everyone arrived at the foot of the mountain where the Azure Dragon Palace was located. The road had long since disappeared, and they had been walking for nearly half a day. The Azure Dragon Palace was hidden in such a deserted place, no wonder no one could discover it. Li Xiaotian stared blankly at the mountain in front of her. Along the way, she had many questions. Although she had lost her memories, her intelligence had not decreased in the slightest. These days, she had already discovered many clues. When others faced her, they were especially unnatural. Especially at the very beginning, there was even a hint of hostility mixed in. After such a long time of integration, this hostility gradually weakened. Although she wanted to integrate into this big family, there was always a feeling of being out of place in her heart. She gradually understood that before she lost her memories, she must have been at odds with everyone. Perhaps she was a big bad person. This thought gave her a fright. She had never thought of herself as a bad person. She was kind-hearted, and the thing she wanted to do most was to help others. This time, she saw Tang Jing deliberately send away his confidants and bring her along. How could she not be surprised? She guessed that this might have something to do with her identity. What was her identity? She had silently asked herself many times, but there was no answer. She hoped to find the answer, but she was also somewhat afraid. If unfortunately, she guessed correctly, she was a bad person, then what should she do? She looked at her hands. If these hands had killed someone and were covered in blood, She clutched her head, not daring to continue thinking. Seeing her reaction, Tang Zheng was shocked. Now he was sure that she had completely lost her memories under the influence of the soul-searching technique, and was not pretending. "What's wrong with you?" Li Xiaotian suddenly raised her head and asked, "What are we doing here?" "There is a group of bad people here. They have harmed many people, so we need to deal with them," Tang Zheng said implicitly. "Who is that?" Li Xiaotian looked at him with burning eyes and asked. "Azure Dragon Palace." Li Xiaotian's eyes were blank. She shook her head and said that she had never heard of these 3 words. "It doesn't matter if you haven't heard of it. Since you are here to deal with bad people, why did you bring me along? I don't know martial arts. Moreover, I don't want to fight." Although she had once saved a little girl who was almost killed by a car, she still did not know that she knew martial arts. Her usual behavior was no different from ordinary people. Tang Zheng was silent. He did not know how to answer. Seeing his reaction, Li Xiaotian suddenly realized something. Her expression became very depressed. She nervously asked, "Am I a person from the Azure Dragon Palace?" "Ah." Tang Zheng's eyelids fiercely jumped. He was surprised that her guess was so accurate. She was still so smart. How should he answer this? "You don't need to answer. I already know the answer. I also finally understand why they were always on guard against me. They were hostile. So I really was a bad person in the past," Li Xiaotian miserably said. She looked as if she had lost her soul. Tang Zheng had never seen such pain on her face. She looked as if she had lost her soul. It was as if her spirit had been sucked away in an instant. Tang Zheng could not help but blame himself. Was he too cruel? He had already obtained information from her. Why did he have to bring her here? This was to open up her scars and then sprinkle a handful of salt on it. No matter how many bad things she had done in the past, from this moment on, Tang Zheng no longer resented her. This was because he hated the old Li Xiaotian. Now, she was a brand new Li Xiaotian. A true new life. Don't be sad. That is not the current you. You are now a good person. Tang Zheng's comforting words were somewhat weak. But I was bad before. Li Xiaotian said, "Did I kill people before?" Tang Zheng did not lie and nodded lightly. Li Xiaotian burst into tears and squatted on the ground. This was out of everyone's expectations, especially Wu. She had always had a huge opinion of Li Xiaotian and always thought that Li Xiaotian was pretending to lose her memories. But at this moment, seeing Li Xiaotian's reaction, this belief was shaken. Could it be that she had really changed? Wu was not a petty person. When she confirmed that Li Xiaotian had really changed, the anger in her heart lessened by a lot. Looking at Li Xiaotian, she suddenly felt that he was a little pitiful. She bent down and gently patted Li Xiaotian's back, saying, "Don't be sad, what I hate is the past you. Actually, you are a good person now. Back then, your actions of saving that little girl had already moved me." "Really?" Li Xiaotian asked pitifully with tears streaming down her face. Wu nodded firmly. "Of course it's true." Chapter 933. Although Wu hated evil as if it was his enemy, he was still a magnanimous person. Seeing Li Xiaotian reveal his true feelings, he sincerely said those words. Li Xiaotian wiped away her tears, stood up and said, "Thank you, I'm much better now. Why don't you go home first?" Tang Zheng said softly. Li Xiaotian thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, since I want to be a good person and break away from the past, then the best way is to face the past." Tang Zheng secretly praised, and said, "Then let's continue forward." This small episode did not really affect everyone's mood. On the contrary, because of Li Xiaotian's true feelings, everyone accepted her. Not long after, they arrived at a stream on the mountainside. A fisherman wearing a bamboo hat sat by the stream, holding a long bamboo fishing rod in his hand, with a straight hook hanging on the fishing line. In the clear stream, the fish circled around the empty hook, as if it was delicious and wanted to take a bite. Elder Angler. Tang Jing subconsciously called out. The fisherman did not even turn his head as he stared at the water, as if the fish were much more attractive than them. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at the fisherman in shock. This person looked like an ordinary old man who was infatuated with the forest, but in reality, he was extremely deep. They could not see through him at all. The two of them looked at each other and read the meaning in each other's eyes. This fisherman was definitely a martial king. To them, the martial king realm was a realm that they yearned for, but it was not unreachable. Ever since they left the martial sect, the two of them had spent most of their time on the island, broadening their horizons and living with the witch clan every day. Although they were not cultivators, they had many things in common with cultivation. Their cultivation had also advanced by leaps and bounds, and they had already touched the threshold of the martial king realm, reaching the 9th level of the Great Master realm. Tang Jing knew that the fisherman was one of the 3 great consecrators of the Azure Dragon Palace. His cultivation was even higher than that of the fair-faced flying dragon, so he had naturally reached the martial king realm. Seeing that the other party did not react, he walked up and arrived behind the fisherman. The muscles on Elder Angler's neck twitched slightly, but Tang Jing still keenly noticed it. Tang Jing's footsteps were very light and ordinary, but in Elder Angler's heart, these footsteps had already conveyed many things. The person who came was an expert. He finally turned his head slowly and his gaze fell on Tang Jing's face. His eyes flickered as if he was trying to guess the other's identity. He did not know Tang Jing. Although he was a consecrator of the Azure Dragon Hall, he spent most of his time fishing here, unlike fair-faced flying dragon who was involved in the affairs of the Azure Dragon Hall. He hadn't even seen Tang Jing's photo before. However, his attention was quickly attracted by Li Xiaotian, and his pupils suddenly shrank. The news of Li Xiaotian's death had already been brought back by Song Yu, but why was she standing in front of him alive? How were these people related to her? Questions flashed through Elder Angler's mind, but when his gaze landed on Wu Junshan and Lan Yu, he could no longer conceal his shock. "It's you guys." He instantly knew who these people were because he recognized Wu Junshan and Lan Yu. Towards these two, even if he did not care about worldly affairs, he would definitely recognize them. "Li Xiaotian, you actually betrayed the Azure Dragon Hall, betrayed the High Lord," Elder Angler angrily said. Hearing him call out her name, Li Xiaotian became emotional and bit her lips. Tang Jing blocked Elder Angler's gaze and said, "Don't blame me for bullying a girl. If you have anything to say, come at me." "You are Tang Jing?" Tang Jing faintly smiled, tacitly agreeing. "You have guts, daring to come to the Azure Dragon Hall. Li Xiaotian submitted to you. Could it be that she did not tell you how powerful the Azure Dragon Hall is?" Elder Angler stood up and glared at Tang Jing like a tiger watching its prey. "The Azure Dragon Hall is powerful, but it is not invincible. Since you are a consecrator of the Azure Dragon Hall, I will first defeat you." With a tap of his finger, the Battle Soul Sword flew out of thin air and slashed towards Elder Angler. Elder Angler's eyes flashed. He lightly shook his wrist and the fishing line flew towards Battle Spirit, wrapping around the sword in an attempt to stop its attack. Battle Spirit shone brightly, but it was unknown what material the fishing line was made of, but it actually did not break. However, Battle Spirit's attack did not decrease. Elder Angler hurriedly withdrew his move. The fishing line loosened and like a snake, it turned around and shot towards Tang Jing like a dart. "Break!" Tang Jing gave a low roar, and the Battle Soul Sword's attack changed direction, directly slashing at the fishing line. Clang! Like a zither string breaking, the fishing line finally broke into two, but the hook still shot towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing coldly snorted. He stretched out his hand and a small black hole appeared in his palm. The fishing hook flashed and disappeared into the black hole. Elder Angler's expression became especially cold. Tang Jing's strength was high beyond his expectations. Moreover, with the help of others, he would not be able to resist at all. Immediately, he had the intention to retreat. However, Battle's spirit closed in step by step, not giving him the chance. In an instant, it appeared in front of him and slashed down. Hua! The air was like seawater, automatically splitting to two sides. A wave of oppressive sword chi rushed towards his face. He hurriedly dodged, but the fishing rod in his hand pointed towards Tang Zheng. An inch longer was an inch stronger, that was for ordinary people. Although the fishing rod was very long, this advantage did not exist for Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng slightly retreated, dodging the attack. However, he still controlled his sword to attack from afar. Pooh! A line of blood extended from Elder Angler's face all the way to his chin. A look of pain flashed in his old eyes. However, he was not cut in half because at the critical moment, he controlled the fishing rod to point at the ground. The fishing rod bent and he used the rebound force to fly backwards. Battle Spirit's sword only left a line of blood on his face and did not harm his life. He did not stop. The fishing rod tapped on the ground a few more times. Then, as if he was stepping on stilts, he quickly fled towards the top of the mountain. A cold light flashed in Tang Zheng's eyes. Battle Spirit's sword chased after him. Just as the other party was about to disappear into the forest, Battle Spirit's sword caught up with him. A flower of blood bloomed on his back. He fell into the forest and completely disappeared. Chase! Tang Zheng did not hesitate, he took the lead and chased towards the top of the mountain. The others were not willing to fall behind, but Li Xiaotian stood in place, not knowing what to do. She had forgotten how to use martial arts and how to increase her speed. Seeing this, Wu grabbed her hand and said, "Come with me." "Thank you." Li Xiaotian looked at her gratefully, allowing her to lead him as they chased towards the top of the mountain. When she got used to the speed, she gradually felt that her body's functions were completely activated. In the forest, other than the sound of the wind, there was only the sound of a few people rushing. The top of the mountain was in sight, and the pitch-black house came into view. Tang Zheng subconsciously slowed down his footsteps and reminded, "We have already reached the core area of the Azure Dragon Palace. Everyone, be careful." Everyone nodded in agreement. Finally, they stopped in front of the house and focused their gazes on it. There was still blood on the ground, disappearing behind the door. Tang Zheng shouted in a clear voice, "Elder Angler, Lord, could it be that you want to be a coward and not come out?" "Nonsense." With a creak, the door opened. The Elder Angler stood at the door with a pale face. He held on to the door frame with one hand, as if he could fall at any time. His entire body was wet from head to toe, but it was wet from blood. Furthermore, there were a few drops of blood hanging from the corner of his clothes. The Elder Angler said weakly, "Tang Zheng, you are courting death. Don't think that just because you defeated me, you will defeat the Azure Dragon Palace. Since you dare to say such words, then show me your methods." "I will wait and see," Tang Zheng said indifferently. "Blood guillotine, attack." The Elder Angler clenched his teeth and suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs. So. More than 10 blood guillotine flew out from the black house and swept over everyone's heads. Tang Zheng, Empyrean Fairy, and Tian Chanzi had already seen the power of the blood guillotine in the 100,000 Great Mountains. They did not completely let down their guard, but they also did not treat it as if they were facing a great enemy. However, the blood guillotine was used in conjunction with a formation. At this moment, the other party was in a hurry to meet the enemy and the formation was not completed. Tang Zheng took advantage of the situation to rise up, and with familiar ease, he controlled Battle's soul to meet a blood guillotine, directly chopping it to the ground. Tian Chanzi pointed his finger and a sharp sword chi also struck a blood guillotine. As for Empyrean Fairy, she did not even look at it. Wu Junshan and the others felt waves in their hearts. This was the power that the Azure Dragon Hall relied on. It was indeed extraordinary. They were not willing to fall behind and fought back. Suddenly, a few people jumped out from the black house. They were all master-level martial artists and were members of the blood guillotine. Seeing that their formation was disrupted by the other party before it was completed, they did not panic. Instead, they quickly fixed the formation's flaws and formed a complete formation. They attacked again, but the blood guillotines in the air became slippery like loaches. There was no way to attack. Empyrean Fairy finally did not remain indifferent. She coldly looked at the group and said, "You still want to use this thing to stop us? Some things can be done once, but not twice." With a thought, the stately mountain and river map flew into the air and a small hill descended from the stately mountain and river map. Everyone was shocked. Before they could react, they saw the top of their heads turn black. Boom! The entire mountain trembled as the small hill landed on top of the black house. All the blood guillotines were crushed under the small hill, not a single sound could be heard. Seeing her move, Wu Junshan and the others were shocked speechless. This was the power of a celestial. Compared to it, they were like babies. Tang Zheng was not surprised. The last time they faced the blood guillotines, they were restrained by the High Lord, so she could not use such a big move. This time, without the High Lord's restraint, the Empyrean Fairy used a big move right from the start. They could not resist at all. The Empyrean Fairy waved her hand and coldly snorted. Not far away, the angler looked at this scene with a pale face. Fortunately, he acted according to the situation and escaped in time. Otherwise, he would have been crushed by the small hill. Chapter 934. The heavens and earth were silent, as if even the wind had sensed the danger and took a detour. Suddenly, the hill began to shake. Everyone's expression changed as they subconsciously cried out. The Empyrean Fairy's eyes narrowed as she looked at this scene suspiciously. Boom! With a loud explosion, the hill exploded, turning into large rocks that flew in all directions. Everyone was hit by the rocks and hurriedly used their cultivation to block them. When the rocks dissipated, they discovered that there was a person standing in the ruins. High Lord. He was wearing a mask and his cold gaze swept over everyone as he said, "You actually found this place." This was the first time that Wu Junshan and Lan Yu had seen a High Lord. Their expressions kept changing. This High Lord had deceived everyone and secretly controlled the martial sect. This was a great humiliation to Wu Junshan. That was why he took the initiative to come and settle this matter. At this moment, looking at the High Lord, he wanted nothing more than to charge forward and fight to the death. "High Lord, it's Li Xiaotian who betrayed us." Elder Angler hurriedly explained. "So she didn't die, but betrayed us." The High Lord's gaze turned and stabbed Li Xiaotian's chest like a sharp knife. Immediately, she felt a strong sense of suffocation and her face became pale, but she gritted her teeth and held on. She righteously said, "I didn't betray you, I just turned from the dark to the light. You are a bad person and I am a good person." Good person? The High Lord ruminated on these two words and looked at her as if he didn't recognize her. He said, "You still want to be a good person?" "Of course." Li Xiaotian proudly raised her neck. The High Lord stared at her and suddenly said in a shocking voice, "You are not Li Xiaotian." He understood the original Li Xiaotian very well. That was a woman who would do anything to achieve her goals. How could she say that she wanted to be a good person? She should be the one who said that good people don't live long. Li Xiaotian didn't back down. Instead, he said directly, "Of course I'm not the Li Xiaotian you knew. That Li Xiaotian is already dead. This is my new life." Freshman. The High Lord repeated this absurd word. "Tang Zheng, how did you do it? She was actually brainwashed by you just like that?" The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into a smile. It wasn't easy to shock a High Lord like this. People tend to be kind. This is the law of nature and also the most basic human nature. She is a kind person deep down in her heart. It's only because you guys instilled too many wrong ideas that she went astray and became what she was in the past. Now, she has already left behind her past and is a brand new self. Tang Zheng said tirelessly. The Great Lord snorted in disdain. No matter how you did it, since she's already standing on the opposite side of me, I won't let her leave alive. Do you think you have the right to say that? I found your Azure Dragon Hall's lair. I won't let you leave alive, Tang Jing retorted. Humph, you won last time, but it doesn't mean that you'll win this time. The Great Lord's voice was powerful and full of confidence. Then we'll know once we try. The Empyrean fairy spoke first. She was still brooding over the loss last time. This time, she wanted to give the Great Lord a fatal blow. The Empyrean fairy cast a spell. The mountain river map flew directly above the Great Lord's head. A powerful aura spread out from the mountain river map. The Great Lord's expression was normal. His fingers flipped and quickly formed a hand seal. At the same time, he slowly opened his mouth and spat out a syllable. Hum. This syllable sounded in the world, stirring up the world and reverberating in people's hearts. Everyone was shocked. Tang Zheng, the Empyrean fairy, and Tian Chanzi had seen the Great Lord's non-phase method. But from the first syllable, they had already judged that the Great Lord's power had greatly increased. The power of this syllable was already very terrifying. Boom, this syllable was like the most powerful gale between heaven and earth. It swept across the top of the mountain. In an instant, the ruins and rocks exploded. Hum. The second syllable came out of his mouth. It was more natural and majestic. Hum. 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 5 syllables came out of his throat in one breath. His chest, abdomen, and vocal cords resonated. After he spat out these 5 syllables, everyone felt a great pressure as expected. He spoke too fast. After the 5 syllables were uttered in an instant, the atmosphere between heaven and earth changed. Everyone felt suppressed by the terrible force falling from the sky and couldn't move at all. My mistake. This time, I should have brought Linga with me. Because only her mind is pure and undistracted, she can avoid this pervasive non-phase method. Tang Zheng couldn't help but regret. As soon as the 5 syllables came out, everyone seemed to have fallen into glue. Their movements became very slow, and the air seemed to have become incomparably sticky. Tang Zheng secretly felt bad. When he was about to fight back, he heard the Empyrean fairy shout, "Break!" The mountain river map shone brightly. Black things spewed out from the mountain river map. A monstrous flood washed down, as if it was going to directly break the Great Lord into pieces. At this time, the Great Lord opened his mouth again. A word penetrated layers of obstacles between his chest and abdomen and burst out from his throat. Hum. He had completely mastered the 6 words of the non-phase method. As soon as the 6th syllable came out, the atmosphere between heaven and earth changed dramatically, and the flood from the sky stopped. Time and space froze at this moment. Everyone had turned into puppets. However, the Great Lord's eyes fluctuated very fiercely. Obviously, this 6th word was something that he had just cultivated and was not proficient in. Moreover, using the non-phase method and spitting out the 6 words of the proverb consumed a lot of energy and mind. When he spat out the 6 words of the proverb, he must be undistracted. Therefore, when he restricted the opponent, he was also restricted and had no power to protect himself. However, the non-phase method attacked indiscriminately. As long as it was within the range of the 6 words of the proverb, as long as anyone had murderous intent, it would be difficult to escape and could not break through. In particular, he had spat out the 6th word. The power was even more incomparable. It was much more powerful than when he was in the 100,000 mountains. When Tang Zheng and the others heard the 6th voice, they immediately knew that the situation was not good. They looked at the monstrous flood suspended above the Great Lord's head. It was as if it was frozen, motionless. This scene almost caused them to collapse, but they had no other choice. They could only watch all of this happen, because they couldn't even move a finger. Tang Zheng crazily operated his power, trying to break through this imprisonment, but he found that the non-phase method was really strange. The more anxious he was, the heavier his murderous intent, and the more he felt that there was a powerful force around him that was shrinking and squeezing his body, as if it wanted to crush him. This was the power of the non-phase method breaking through to the 6th level. The first 5 levels corresponded to the 5 syllables. Although it could affect people's actions, it had no real lethality and had to rely on external objects to attack. The flying guillotine came into being and made up for this flaw. But when the non-phase method broke through to the 6th level, the 6th syllable could be completely spoken, and the non-phase method was achieved. This was not only to imprison others, but also to attack the other party. The attacked person would feel that there was an increasingly large and terrifying force squeezing their body from all directions. When the body finally could not resist this force, they would die. Even without the flying guillotine, it could still kill people in a flash. The Empyrean fairy's face became pale, and she bitterly said, "The non-phase method is so powerful, I miscalculated." Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at each other and firmly said, "Even if we die, we must escape. We must not let him catch us all in one fell swoop. Little Zheng cannot have any accident." The two desperately operated their power, trying to offset this force, but it was completely futile. It was like a rope around their neck. The more they struggled, the tighter it became. In the end, they could not escape the fate of being strangled. Elder Angler was ecstatic to see this scene. Of course, he was clear about the power of the non-phase method. However, he did not expect that the Great Lord would come out of seclusion and actually reach such a level. He had truly cultivated the non-phase method. Who told you to be arrogant? With the Great Lord here, no one can overthrow the Azure Dragon Hull. Elder Angler happily said. Tang Zheng unwillingly opened his eyes wide. He originally thought that with so many people, there would be a way to break the situation. Moreover, he had summed up the experience with the Empyrean fairy in advance and discussed countermeasures. In the end, they determined that although they relied on Ling to break the situation last time, that was the first time they faced the non-phase method. This time, even if there was no Ling they would absolutely not repeat the same mistake and let the Great Lord succeed. Because as long as they struck first, there would be a glimmer of hope. However, they never thought that the Great Lord would actually completely cultivate the non-phase method. When the 6 words were used, the power was much greater than expected. For a while, they fell into the same predicament twice, and it was even more dangerous. The power created by the 6 words was absolutely not easy for them to break, so what should they do? The pressure on his body was getting bigger and bigger, as if his body was being squeezed by the power from all directions. Suddenly, Tang Zheng felt that there was movement around him. A person gently lifted his foot and took a step forward. What the hell? Tang Zheng ran past 10,000 alpacas in the play, but he could not move and could not see clearly what was happening around him. Who was this person who took a step forward? One must know that this was within the attack range of the non-phase method. Even the Empyrean fairy, a master in the deity stage, could not escape, let alone other people. Could it be that this voice came from another supermaster? No. Tang Zheng subconsciously denied. Listening to this voice, it seemed that this person had been standing beside them, indicating that they were together. He silently counted one by one, but could not think of anyone who could have this ability. Chapter 935. Finally, Tang Zheng saw the person who came out. Li Xiaotian. The others also saw her, and it was incredible. How could she be safe and sound? Wasn't she full of murderous intent before? Tang Zheng thought quickly and suddenly realized, Li Xiaotian lost her memory and was reborn. The murderous intent in her heart disappeared, and she became as pure and kind as a baby. This was the same as Linger, so she could not be affected by the non-phase method. Li Xiaotian looked at herself in surprise, and then looked at the others. She did not know why she could move freely and was not affected. The others looked at her in shock, especially the Lord and the dangling fisher. They knew her very well. In any case, she might have this ability. But everything in front of them made them believe how wrong their judgment was. Empyrean Fairy and the others, like Tang Zheng, immediately understood the reason, and their eyes were filled with joy. It was really a pleasant surprise to bring her here this time. Tang Jing chose to forgive her, but he did not expect that now it would produce such an unexpected result. The deadlock of certain death was broken. Tang Jing could not wait to shout, "Li Xiaotian, go and attack the Lord." His non-phase method will naturally lose its power. Li Xiaotian bit her lips and hesitated. Tang Jing thought she was worried about her safety and was afraid of the Lord's counterattack. He quickly explained, "Don't worry, he is now a toothless tiger. He can't jump and threaten you." Li Xiaotian shook her head slightly. "I'm not worried about my safety. I just want to ask him why he wants me to become a bad person like before." The sadness and frustration in her words made people feel like their hearts were being twisted by a knife. "Li Xiaotian, from the day your master picked you up, your life belongs to the Azure Dragon Hall. What kind of person you want to become, of course, is up to me. There is no reason," the Lord said bluntly. Li Xiaotian's tears fell from the corner of her eyes. "Have you never considered my feelings? What do you feel? The only thing you have to do is follow my orders. Li Xiaotian, if you turn back now and kill those people, I can spare your life. Otherwise, your fate will be the same as theirs. You will die without a burial ground." The Great Lord's tone was still unyielding. "No." Li Xiaotian suddenly let out a heart-wrenching roar. "You have no right to decide my life. That's not the life I want." The Great Lord's eyes became very sharp as he stared at her. Suddenly, he had an idea and said, "You lost your memory, right?" Tang Zheng's head trembled. The High Lord was indeed very powerful. He had actually seen through the clues. Li Xiaotian coldly said, "I have lost my memories. That memory was the darkest moment of my life. To be able to remove it from my mind is my greatest fortune." "I see. I finally understand. Tang Zheng, you really have a good method. You actually used this kind of method to make her betray me." Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, "A just cause enjoys abundant support while an unjust cause finds little support. Everyone has a scale in their heart. Let them go. Otherwise, I won't be polite." Li Xiaotian threatened. "Do you have the guts to deal with me?" The Great Lord's aura was very strong. He could see an intense fear and timidity in Li Xiaotian's eyes. This was no longer the decisive killing her from before. "Li Xiaotian, don't be afraid of him. He's just bluffing. He can't hurt you." Tang Jing hurriedly reminded her. He was deeply afraid that she would be scared by the other. "I'm not afraid of him." Li Xiaotian shook her head. The fear in her eyes gradually disappeared. Instead, it became very firm. She walked step by step towards the Great Lord. A trace of panic flashed in the depths of the Great Lord's eyes. He bluffed and said, "Stop. Do you want to die? I've already died once. How could I be afraid of death?" Li Xiaotian looked very indifferent. She finally walked in front of the Great Lord. The Great Lord could not hide his panic. He watched as she stretched out 2 fingers and poked his eyes. This action did not have the slightest murderous intent. It was as if she was taking a stroll. It was exactly this action that did not trigger the slightest attack from the non-phase method. Li Xiaotian did not use martial arts, but if those 2 delicate fingers were inserted into the Great Lord's eyes, his pair of eyes would certainly be difficult to protect. Finally, the Great Lord could not stand it anymore. He shouted, "I'll kill you." In order to save his life, he had to give up the non-phase method. In an instant, everyone regained their ability to move. The Great Lord attacked Li Xiaotian, intending to kill her directly. "Stop." Tang Zheng had already expected the Great Lord's reaction. As soon as he regained his freedom, the shooting sun arrow flew out like lightning. The Great Lord's hand was about to hit Li Xiaotian's head when the shooting sun arrow arrived in front of his face. If he insisted on killing Li Xiaotian, then he would also die without a doubt. The Great Lord's eyes flashed with a strong unwillingness. He had no choice but to retreat. The shooting sun arrow flew past his cheek. Boom! The shooting sun arrow shot into the distant mountain rocks and the rocks were torn apart. At the same time, Tang Zheng came to Li Xiaotian's side. He took her in his arms and flew back. The great lord roared, "Tang Zheng, I'll kill you." Tang Zheng sneered, "Let's see who will kill who." "Wu, you protect her." Letting go of Li Xiaotian, he turned around and rushed toward the great lord. In an instant, the two people fought. The sky darkened, sand and stones flew, and it was abnormally terrifying. Tang Zheng was a first-grade Yuanian cultivator, but after the great lord went into seclusion this time, not only did he recuperate from his injuries, his cultivation had also increased greatly, and he had already reached the 9th grade martial king. Amongst the warriors in the past 100 years, there was no doubt that he was the one with the highest cultivation. Compared to him, Tang Zheng was also much weaker. It was just that the great lord's non-phase method was forced to be helpless and could not be used, so his fighting strength was greatly reduced. Furthermore, Tang Zheng had the War Soul Sword, Heaven-Shocking Bow, and Shooting Sun Arrow, so his fighting strength naturally increased greatly. For a moment, the two of them were unable to determine the victor. However, this was only a matter of time, because Tang Zheng was not a match for the great lord in the end. The great lord finally found a flaw and struck Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng flew backwards and spat out blood. He immediately stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The great lord took advantage of the situation and attacked again. "I've played enough." The Empyrean fairy shouted coldly, and came in front of Tang Zheng, taking on the great lord for him. The great lord faced the Empyrean fairy, and the pressure increased. He immediately retreated, but was still forced back by the Empyrean fairy. Tang Zheng secretly sighed. Although he had reached the 1st grade of Yuanying, he was still weak. However, this battle with the great lord had already benefited him a lot. Looking at the battered and exhausted great lord, Tang Zheng made up his mind. He turned his gaze and stared at the elder angler who was staggering and quietly escaping into the forest. The old fisherman was not an idiot. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, he thought of sneaking away. As long as there was life, there was hope. "Elder angler, do you still want to leave?" Tang Zheng roared. With a point of his finger, the War Soul Sword flew towards the elder angler. The elder angler turned his head and saw the War Soul Sword flying towards him. He had almost lost his life to the War Soul Sword, so he was especially afraid of it. Thus, he subconsciously waved his arm. With a flash of cold light, a fishing rod appeared in his hand, and he faced the War Soul Sword. Ka-cha! The War Soul Sword slashed the fishing rod, and the War Soul Sword broke into two. The elder angler simply abandoned the War Soul Sword and rushed into the forest. Tang Zheng followed him like a shadow, and chased after him without a word. Seeing this, the great lord roared, and narrowly dodged the Empyrean fairy's attack. Then, he did not dare to stop and rushed into the forest. "Chase!" The Empyrean fairy shouted, and chased after him like lightning. The others also reacted as if they had just woken up from a dream. Especially Wu Junshan, it was his first time seeing the Empyrean fairy's skills. It was truly shocking. The Azure Dragon Hall Great Lord, who was once invincible in his heart, was only a so-so. He was actually chased to the point of fleeing. He saw the elder angler jumping up and down in the forest like a monkey, his figure erratic. He was clearly using the familiar terrain to try and get rid of Tang Zheng. How could Tang Zheng let him succeed? He immediately drew his bow and the shooting sun arrow left the bowstring with a so sound. Seeing this scene, the elder angler was almost scared out of his wits. He no longer had a weapon in his hand, so he had no way to block this arrow. He watched as the shooting sun arrow flew closer and closer. Although he used all his skills, he dodged the shooting sun arrow. However, before he could catch his breath, he found that another arrow was already waiting for him in the direction he dodged. Although he was a 2nd grade martial king, and Tang Zheng was only a 1st grade Yuanying, Tang Zheng had 2 saint artifacts. Even if there was a difference of one level, Tang Jing could still kill him. In the end, the elder angler had no chance to dodge. He watched as the shooting sun arrow pierced his chest, the tail of the arrow still trembling in his chest. A heart-wrenching scream burst out from his throat. Then, the scream slowly weakened, and the light in his eyes gradually dissipated. Finally, all the sounds came to an abrupt end. The world was completely silent. The elder angler fell backwards. Bang! He fell to the ground, his eyes wide open, and he breathed his last. The dignified Azure Dragon Hall Great Lord ended his life just like that. The Great Lord happened to see this scene from afar. His eyes were about to split open as he roared, "Tang Jing, I want you to pay with your blood." Tang Jing coldly snorted and said, "Your Azure Dragon Hall has killed so many cultivators over the years. You only have yourselves to blame for all of this." The Great Lord did not attack. Instead, he chose a small path and fled to the back of the mountain. "You want to escape? In your dreams." Tang Jing chased after him. The Empyrean fairy also took the lead and chased after him. She expressionlessly looked at the dead elder angler, then focused her attention on the escaping Great Lord. When the others saw the elder angler's corpse, their reactions were much greater, especially Wu Junshan and Lan Yu. A dignified martial king had actually died in the hands of their son. All kinds of feelings welled up in their hearts. They were left far behind by their son. Tang Jing chased the Great Lord to a cliff in the back of the mountain. The mountain wind was biting cold. The 10,000 zhang cliff was a hopeless situation with no way out. The Great Lord also stopped. "You finally can't escape. You've always been curious about what kind of face you have under that mask." Tang Jing also stopped and stared at the Great Lord like a tiger eyeing its prey. Chapter 936. The High Lord looked at the group of people who were eyeing him covetously and laughed sinisterly. "Do you think you can kill me like this? You already have nowhere to run. Do you still dare to jump off the cliff? This is a bottomless abyss. No matter how high your martial arts are, I don't believe you can survive." Tang Jing said firmly. "Humph, even if I die, I won't fall into your hands." The High Lord was filled with righteous indignation. "Then do you dare to jump?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" After the High Lord finished speaking, he turned around and jumped off the cliff. "Ah!" Everyone cried out in alarm. They were truly frightened by this action. The High Lord actually jumped off the cliff to commit suicide. The High Lord's figure quickly disappeared into the fog below the cliff. Tang Jing stretched his neck to look at this scene. For a moment, he was at a loss. The others also leaned over the cliff to look. The biting cold wind blew up from the cliff as if it wanted to sweep them down. Everyone retracted their necks and took a few steps back to distance themselves from the cliff. They looked at each other in dismay. "He died just like that?" Wu Junshan asked blankly. Ever since he knew of the existence of the Azure Dragon Hall, he was extremely afraid of the High Lord. But the person who made him so afraid died so easily. He found it hard to accept. Tian Chanzi said, "Although the High Lord is very powerful, but after all, there is a limit." Facing so many experts, he had no way to escape. Jumping off the cliff to commit suicide would be a bit more enjoyable. Lan Yu shook his head in disappointment. "It's just a pity that I don't know what kind of face is under that mask." Little Zheng said that there was still a jade-faced flying dragon, but I didn't see any trace of him. Wu and Li Xiaotian stared at the cliff. Wu felt relieved, while Li Xiaotian felt a sense of relief. On the other hand, Tang Zheng and Empyrean Fairy were extremely calm. Their gazes intertwined as they looked at each other deeply. Unknowingly, they saw something unusual in each other's eyes. Suddenly, their eyes slightly changed as they said at the same time, "Something is wrong. Maybe he is not dead." With Tang Zheng's understanding of the High Lord was definitely not someone who was willing to accept his fate. Even if he was in a desperate situation, he would not give up hope and not make a final struggle. This was completely out of line with his character and style. Therefore, the two of them determined that the High Lord was not dead. Hearing their words, the others subconsciously looked at the two of them in confusion. Although the Great Lord's martial arts were powerful, this was still a 10,000 zhang cliff. He did not have wings, nor did he have the ability to fly. How could he not die? Tang Zheng understood everyone's doubts very well. He explained, "My lord has been plotting for so long and has been waiting in the dark for an opportunity to take action. If he jumped off the cliff so easily, wouldn't he be too stupid? Then how could he secretly control the martial sect, Li Palace, and Sword Pavilion? This was absolutely illogical." The others thought about it carefully and also realized what was going on. This was indeed the case. Everything was too strange. "I'll go down and take a look." Tang Zheng made up his mind. "I'll go too." Tian Chanzi and Empyrean Fairy said in unison. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "Tian Chanzi, you go down with me. Fu Yao, you stay with the others, just in case." These people could not fight against the High Lord, and they did not know what dangers were lurking in the dark. Of course, they could not easily leave them here alone. Empyrean Fairy was the strongest, so she was the most reliable person to stay behind and take care of them. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi immediately jumped down from the cliff. However, a light flashed under their feet, and they were already flying on their swords. There were layers of fog in front of them. They were very careful, afraid that there would be unknown dangers in the fog. They safely passed through the fog, and their eyes suddenly opened up. The ground was already in sight, but the towering trees were small. It was obvious how tall they were. He definitely did not fall. "Let's pay attention to the cliff and look for him," Tang Zheng analyzed. Tian Chanzi agreed wholeheartedly, and the two began to look for him on the cliff. Their flying speed was very slow, so the two searched very carefully. Not long after, Tang Zheng shouted, "Tian Chanzi, there's a cave here." The cave was not small, and it was as tall as a person. Moreover, there were some fresh traces at the entrance of the cave. The rocks had been crushed. He definitely escaped into this cave. I already knew that he had a backup plan so he wouldn't die so easily. Luckily we found him. Otherwise, if we waited for him to escape, it would be difficult for us to find him again. Tang Zheng rejoiced. "Let's go in." Tian Chanzi could not wait and rushed in front. His cultivation was higher than Tang Zheng's, so if there was any danger, he would naturally have more defensive power. The entrance of the cave was a little damp, but after a few meters, it was dry. The mountain wind blew in from the entrance, and the air was not turbid. Instead, it was clear. The end of the cave could not be seen, and they did not know where it extended. The two looked at each other and said in a low voice, "Could it be that we can escape from this mountain through this cave? Could it be that this is the Azure Dragon Palace's backup plan?" Tang Zheng did not know. This was something that even Li Xiaotian did not know. In the entire Azure Dragon Palace, perhaps only the High Lord knew. It was no wonder that he deliberately led everyone to the back of the mountain. It was because he had already thought of using this plan to escape. "Let's go quickly. Hopefully, we can catch up to him," Tang Zheng said without hesitation, his nerves tense. "Okay." Tian Chanzi agreed without hesitation. Then, the two chased after him as fast as lightning. The deeper they went, the darker the cave became. In the end, it was completely dark. The two were not in a hurry to light up the cave. Instead, they groped around in the dark. They did not know where the High Lord was hiding. If they lit up the cave, they would expose themselves and alert the High Lord, making it harder for them to catch him. The two did not make any sound of footsteps at all. Even their breathing was controlled so that it was almost inaudible. They were like ghosts, quietly moving forward. They walked farther and farther, and felt that they seemed to have reached the center of the mountain. This cave actually led to here, which was really surprising. Suddenly, A faint light came from the front, illuminating the cave. The two subconsciously slowed down and looked at each other. They knew that they were very close to their target. Finally, the light became more and more intense. The cave seemed to be lit by fluorescent lights, as if it was daytime. Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi's pupils shrank. The scene in front of them suddenly became clear. The cave turned into a hall, and there was something erected in the middle of the hall. When Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi saw this thing, their hearts could not help but beat violently. Their pupils also widened. This was a crystal. Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi were very familiar with crystal. They had just brought back a large piece from the Swedish royal family. And this crystal was even bigger. They did not know what was hidden in it. At that time, the crystal was left behind by a meteorite falling on the ground. Could it be that this crystal was also left behind? But they did not know why it fell into the hands of the Azure Dragon Palace. The target they were looking for was in front of them. The High Lord was standing in front of the crystal attentively. He looked excited and whispered in a low voice, as if he was whispering to someone. No matter what the situation is, let's catch him first. Tang Zheng decisively made a decision. The High Lord had gone through untold hardships to get to this crystal, and he was rambling like a person on the verge of death. But Tang Zheng had a very bad premonition. The High Lord had gone through so much trouble. There must be a purpose, and it was far from being as simple as it seemed. Tian Chanzi also had the same concerns. Of course, he also had the same countermeasures. He saw that he went straight to the High Lord. The High Lord turned a deaf ear, as if he did not know that there were two enemies standing behind him. Humph, let's see how long you can stay calm. Tian Chanzi stretched out his big hand and grabbed the High Lord. The High Lord cleverly dodged, then slipped behind the crystal and looked at the two with a sneer. Tian Chanzi caught nothing, but he was not discouraged. Facing a master like the High Lord, it was normal to miss in one hit. Tian Chanzi was not discouraged. He shouted, "Let's see how long you can be arrogant." After saying that, he was ready to go over the crystal and capture the High Lord. Just then, Tang Zheng shouted, "Be careful." Tian Chanzi's movements suddenly froze, and then he retreated like lightning. When he looked carefully, he was overwhelmed with shock. The huge crystal began to change. It became transparent, but there was no strange creature inside. Instead, there was a person, a woman. The woman was in her 30s. Her hands were closed, and she was dressed in ancient clothing. There was a classical charm between her eyebrows. This scene shocked both Tang Zheng and Heaven Monk quite a bit. Why wasn't there any other unknown creature inside the spar, but a person? The crystal was a foreign object. Could it be that this woman was also from another world? There were people in another world, and they were not all strange creatures. For some reason, when he saw this woman, Tang Zheng's heart was suspended. He had a very bad premonition. The two looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Since the High Lord deliberately came here, could it be that there was something strange about the crystal, or could it be that it could help him? The two were puzzled. Seeing the High Lord's provocative face behind the crystal, Tian Chanzi finally could not bear it and was about to rush over and beat him. But at the critical moment, Tang Zheng pulled him back, because he saw that the crystal was shrinking. Before long, half of it disappeared. Tang Zheng fiercely pulled Tian Chanzi's clothes and reminded him, "This crystal is strange. It keeps shrinking. It is completely different from our crystal." Tian Chanzi also nodded in agreement. This was contrary to common sense, so it was definitely not a good thing. The crystal was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. The crystal was like melting ice, but there was no dripping water, nor was there a dense mist. The powerful energy was completely restrained and gathered in the woman's body. Both of them were stunned. They were very clear about how powerful the energy contained in a crystal was. The energy of such a large crystal was completely integrated into the woman's body. How strong was her body to be able to hold so much energy? Even the sea could not hold hundreds of rivers. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.